Listen, babe. Oh, yeah. It's alright, alright, alright. Listen, babe. Oh, yeah. It's alright, alright, alright.
Hey. Welcome back to another session of Hope. 510 Media Hope.
Hey.
For those of you who don't know, or maybe you were too high to remember, I'm Nana Kofinti,
I'm Court Smith.
and we're going to do another session of Hope tonight. Let me just do a little preparation. First of all, before we get started, I just want to I want to say thank you to Fern. Fern gave us a huge donation. I want to say thank you a lot. We love you, Fern. We love you before, after, even if you didn't get the donation. We ride with you. Plus, you look like you're my family, so I'm kind of biased towards you, and I'm kind of protective also. But we love you, Fern. So I just want to say to Fern, we love you very much, and thank you. It's greatly appreciated. And as you guys know, we're saving all the money that's coming in. Outside of like the basics, and all that money is going to be working towards our new space. And I think right now we're starting to look at spaces because we raised so much in 1 month. We're not ready to buy a space yet, but I think we're ready to make some moves. And so I'm sure, like I said, I had promised last year by the end of this year we will be in a new location just dedicated to Hope, and also growing programs in Hope that become agencies to our community. Excuse my throat, I just had to do a presentation to a national organization that was originally started by Richard Nixon to help black MBAs. And they talked black to me to get me in this presentation. But when I got there and the Zoom fired up, there wasn't a black face in the crowd. And that was the most awkward, I literally prepared my whole presentation to speak to black businesses, and I was talking to Indians and people from the Philippines and people from Asian descent, and not that I have any beefs, but the phrase people of color, the problem with the phrase people of color is that we're different, man. We're just different. And although we all may have color in our skin, we don't have the same communication, history. We're not on the same point on our journey. Communication is different, rules are different, and all those individuals require different attention. So if I knew I was going to speak to folks from the Indian community, I would have adjusted my communication for people in the Indian community. So mind you, I just said, fuck it, I'm going to stay black, and I just had a good time. And whatever didn't translate, well, they might be at home tonight doing this. Well, I don't know what this means. No, that's my funny part. But I should just came in. I should just wore red, black, and green. But anyway, I'm here with you guys tonight, and we're going to switch gears and move into this stuff here. So in preparation, we're going to tap into some spaces that's going to probably make you a little emotional. But the emotion is not, at any point, if you feel emotion towards the class, turn it into a question. Because if I'm trying to be a Sherpa for where you haven't been, you cannot show up to the conversation as if you've been there. See where I'm coming from. And if you see where I'm coming from and you still disagree, this would be great, right? Because then we can have a great, excellent dialogue. And I love disagreements, by the way. I don't want anybody, this is not a cloning class. This is not a fraternity. This is not a cult. You got to believe in what I believe in, right? But what we want to do is be able to explore ideas, because one thing about this country is we've given the depressed a microphone. We've given trauma a microphone. I saw the interview from Stacey Dash, and how she apologized for her behavior on Fox News and all the negative things she said. Said she was very angry at the time and didn't know how to extinguish that anger, right? But I don't blame her as much as I blame people giving her a microphone.
True story.
Like, we give every damaged personality a microphone, and we got people who are suffering, who are looking to victimize somebody else, and we give them a microphone, and now social justice goes around and then puts a protective coat on that voice, and before you know, we're all wondering, are we out of alignment because we don't give a shit? Let me just I'm gonna take a little side roll for a second, because after talking for an hour and a half, 2 hours to people who don't even know what blackness means, I just need a second. But let me say this real quick. Here's one of my greatest concern from my brothers and sisters who are focusing on pronouns.
Oh.
Okay, let me say this real quick. And I want to say this because I don't want them to victimize themselves. I think they're about to victimize themselves. You say, what do you mean, Nana? I don't have the mental capacity to be granular about everybody I meet. I'm walking down the street, I see you. Hey, how you doing? I start off with generic greetings, right? I don't have time to figure out your story every time I meet. But if you slap my hand because I didn't serve your granular need, you know what's the other side of that is? You're creating tension. And if you create tension in our greeting, you're also creating long-term isolation. Now, I can honestly say from the brothers and sisters I grew up with that who were of the gay culture, they suffer from the trauma of isolation. A lot of times their loved ones turn on them. A lot of times the culture turns on them. A lot of times they're rejected from jobs and opportunities, right? That's just 400% real. And in our community, it's probably even amplified sometimes more because, I grew up in a household where they didn't talk too nice about gay culture, right? I had to learn about it myself. I wasn't raised in a household. So I understand there's a movement that has to happen. But I think we need to take deeper thought in discussing solutions that take into consideration these ideas living in the wild, right? Because in a perfect world, everybody would show up and tell you they love you. But in a realistic world, a lot of people don't give a shit about you. So if I say hi to you today, like if I say, how you doing, ma'am? Because that's how I was raised. How you doing, ma'am? I'm from old school culture. Excuse me, I'm not a ma'am. I'm a them. Well, what the fuck are we doing here? See how many times I'm going to speak to you again in the future. It's too much. Because you're asking, just like if an old lady comes to me and goes, how you doing, sonny boy? And she's hella old. That's her generation. I'm not going to be like, I'm a black man. I got kids and I've been married. You sit your damaged, sensitive ass down, right? I'm saying that's how I responded. I'm not telling anybody else, but that's how I responded. What I'm suggesting is that, folks, give room for other people to be imperfect. Give room for people to be themselves. Give room for people to be so occupied with their own shit they can't see your shit. Measure people by their intent, not the mistakes they make. Like I told you, one of my biggest contracts I ever received was from a white dude who always says racist shit. But he, once again, made sure I get the biggest contracts. So if I'm measuring his intent, do I have to sit here and audit if he says everything politically correct when it comes to black folks? Why should I even give a fuck? There's 8 billion people on this earth. Why am I giving my power away to one stupid ass person? I'm not gonna do it. And on top of that too, sometimes, racism is a funny thing. This is my last point. Let's stop titling everything racist. Do you realize some things you call racist is just human behavior? You're just on the losing end. When you get on the winning end, that can become you. And so a lot of times we call stuff racist. We have to learn that, first of all, we have a poor mental model of human behavior. So when you call something racist, it's because you don't understand the human behavior. The more you learn about human behavior, you realize, no, that's just some human shit, right? We just happen to be on the losing end of that. But in some human shit, then what that does is it allows you to come up with better strategies and also shift your attention in the proper direction that works in your own personal interests. But sit up here and just this old oversensitive shit, black folks lighten up on this social justice shit, guys. Because when that shit grows out of control, this is why we're in this conversation about blacks and Asians. Black folks, y'all know, let's be 100%. We cool with those who we cool with, and we ain't cool with those who ain't. Because Asian cultures ain't never been really friendly to us. Let's be realistic. Come on. We know damn well if you go into a rich Asian community, you go into a rich Indian community, we don't get treated well. I've been in Silicon Valley, and 20 Indian males be walking my way. I do my typical how you doing, and not one of them will even acknowledge me, right? This is normal. I don't take it personal because they don't have power over me. If you don't have power over me, I don't need the world to love me. I'm not trying to make love to everybody I see. I'm not no Blackberry White, right? And so in the end, it's like when I see people, like we have a complex relationship with the Asian community. And the reason I say it's complex is because when we meet a cool Asian cat or a cool Asian woman, we ride with them strong. When we meet somebody who don't ride with us, we forget about them. Because you got damaged people or people who are suffering from poverty running licks on you. I'm not willing to have this conversation. But if you buy this idea of people of color, it's so easy to soften and superficially like draw these lines and distort the conversation. Before we know, we arguing over some shit that don't matter. So I just needed a black moment because I don't know, maybe y'all confused and forget that I'm hella pro-black, but I just needed a black moment for a second just to talk about some shit that just get on my nerves. I think especially after they forced me and tricked me into a conversation with folks who just didn't, I don't know, it just felt weird. It was the most awkward space I could have ever occupied. So with that being said, enough of my Black Umar Johnson moment. Let's go into, by the way, I don't ride with that, but let's go into some other stuff around this business stuff, and we're going to come back to some heavy stuff in a minute. But let's start off heavy. The fox versus the hedgehog. The fox versus the hedgehog. These are form of thought that came from Phil Tetlock. I'm going to do it this way so my papers don't fly off. Phil Tetlock has been studying human behavior. He's up there with David Kahneman, Amos Tversky, Richard Thaler. He's in that category of leading thought around behavior economics. And Phil still believes that there is a degree of prediction that we should explore. Although most people in behavior science saying that we can't predict because we don't own the future, I think there's a degree of truth of what he's highlighting, because what he's highlighting is that when you make a decision about where to take your business, you're making a prediction, right? So he's saying, how do we improve that prediction process? And so I want to tap into this because this is going to be something that is this is going to be a cool highlight, a new mental model when you think about being an entrepreneur. So you remember when we first came to class, we said, hey, be curious, learn everything you can. Practice learning. Well, let's talk about the profile. What is a hedgehog in business? A hedgehog is somebody who moves to business with big ideas, very focused, big ideas. In corporate America, quite often hedgehogs receive the most promotions. They're full of big ideas. They usually are great speakers. They're well loved. They play the status game because here's the thing: when you rise up in business, often leadership is protecting status over protecting the direction of the company, right? And so a lot of times when you rise up in a company, the hedgehogs are usually well favored by MBAs. They're the ones that give those real emotional storytelling views, and they're very precise. When they predict something, they say, I believe this is going to happen. I believe this is wrong. I believe this is right? They drive big ideas, they stand on them ideas, and they hold true. A fox, on the other hand, sees everything. They're the kind of person that's hard to nail. Their ideas, their thoughts, their views, they're paying attention. So they're saying, well, it could be this and it could be that. Well, if you know the history of America, America doesn't like people to talk like that. People don't like people to say, well, it could be, but it also could be this. Think about the time when you went to one of your friends and you was like really heated and you was convinced you were done right or you were done wrong or something was unfair. And when you told the person says, yeah, but you got to think about it different, other different kind of ways. And there's multiple different angles on how to see it. Well, if you're an entrepreneur, you want to be a fox. Why do you want to be a fox? Because the higher you rise in business, the less common sense works. Common sense works at the bottom and it poorly works at the top. Matter of fact, people who are hedgehogs, they have a tendency to tell you about when I make a decision, I rely on my intuition. When you get to the top, your intuition has no value. Because as your company grows and builds and expands, you can't feel it. See, intuition helps you experience something that you can understand and have sight of. As you grow, you lose sight. So to sit around when you go to a certain point in business and use phrases like common sense or, I feel this is to be the best answer, is almost insane in business. When you get to a certain point, okay, imagine, for example, let's say you ran all of PG&E, or you ran all of Macy's, or you ran some national company that was large. You can make a simple decision. If you made a simple decision as a CEO and said, by tomorrow, everybody in the company needs to follow this new idea I have, you can literally cost the company billions of dollars. because you don't realize how much you could possibly break when you make that fast decision. Remember, the larger the company grows, the less you can see. So when the way it usually works, as you grow in a company or as you build your company, you make a decision and then you create a testing scenario. And you test it, you expand it, you grow it, and then you measure it, and then you expand, and you continue to test it as you evolve it into the company. What you don't do is go, I was really feeling like I feel like I watch TV and I got this impulse. I should just do something. That works when you're really, like if you're a corner store, you probably can get away with that. Because you probably know everybody in the neighborhood, you talk to people every day, you feel them, you see, like your brain is picking up details, and your brain is sending you a message from your subconscious, hey, I know you like this person, but you might be tripping. Because there's something about this person you don't like, right? And that's when you go, I got this gut feeling, Hannah, right? Because your subconscious is reading everything. Your conscious is only focusing on, I like this person's smile, I like what they just said to me, we really relate. But your subconscious look at their shoes, their hair, their clothes, how they walked in, how they move when they grab an item, how they're breathing, which way their eyes are moving. Your brain is seeing it all, but it's only registering so much of it, right? So there's a point where your subconscious is going to communicate to you and you won't really be able to translate that communication. But as you grow in a business, you are losing your ability to see. So a lot of times how we pride ourselves on common sense, understand when you start to build, learn to disconnect from that conversation. Because after a while, you will not be able to see your customers. Matter of fact, what you think your customers want quite often is not what they want. So just know, that's the difference. Reason you want to be a fox, is because when something comes in your direction, because you accept that there's no certainty when you move forward, you want to be able to have multiple options and redundancy and backup plans as far as your strategy. Where a fox have a tendency to a hedgehog has a tendency to lean all the way in and commit themselves to a strategy, good or bad. Now, on the back end, they say, oh, it was bad. We had to pivot. We realized it was bad. Okay, where a fox is going to move forward, but it's going to be building all kinds of protective ways out, backup plans throughout the whole process. Because they're thinking much broader. This is something very important because I promise you, the lower you get in business, especially young entrepreneurs, everybody's claiming, oh, common sense, it worked. I'm telling you, I know. Why can't you believe me? I always feel I, and guess what? You're off. All right? Let's move on to the next one. We good so far. Nobody look at me crazy. Okay, good. That's cool. I like the way she do that line in the middle. That's tight. Space to grow is required. So today I was on the phone with some business owners, and their gross or net, I'm not sure. They're around $2 to $10 million a year. And the most common response we received from everybody, which was so funny, and this is where the cultural difference played a role because I didn't know how to cut through that hard wall they put up against me, which was, I'm too busy for this. I'm too busy. We don't have time for that stuff. Marketing, we don't have time for that. We don't have time to change directions. We don't have time to engage in deep introspection. Why do I mix those words? Introspection. We don't have time to engage in deep introspection and alter the way my company moves in certain directions. A lot of times when you're in an early technician stage of your business, you being busy as an entrepreneur is not a good thing. You know, so the other day, this brother I'm real close with called me up and he's like, yo, what's going on? I said, man, this is a long ass day. He said, well, shit, you chose the life. I said, no, I didn't. What are you talking about? He goes, well, as an entrepreneur, you got to work hard. I said, no, that's not true. What the fuck are you talking about? I said, because if I'm working hard, who's driving this fucking ship? I have to think a lot. Yes. I got to explore a lot. Yes. But if I'm overcommitted to a whole bunch of tasks, no, that's not a good thing. And I had to say to myself, okay, I fucked up. I overcommitted to tasks to the point that I'm too busy. And in addition to that, some of these tasks, I didn't come up with a way to delegate these tasks to the team. Because once again, if I get busy, then it's just a whole bunch of people. It's almost like a whole bunch of people working close to each other, but no one's driving our direction. I mean, okay, let me help you understand. The I in business is horrible, right? We always talk, I mean, I suspect that most people understand at this point that business is about teams, not about individuals. But business is also about priming the ground you have to do business on, right? If you don't create a fertile ground, you don't have a fertile business. It's hard to create a fertile business. Black folks sometimes we chase our individual opportunities, not realizing that we need to also prime the land, or cultivate the land so future opportunities will be available. Because whatever opportunity is available to us today will eventually, because of cultural changes and competition, will wither away. So how do we cultivate the land for the next step? So if everybody's hustling, all we're doing is we're stealing from the land without restoring resources. The black community is so busy hustling, no one is setting up opportunities for the next generation as far as what's the future of your business. Getting yours is unacceptable if you're talking about long-term business. Because getting yours is so short-sighted of how can I get paid now and be in this. The question is, how can I get paid now? How can I even sell this idea as I get to a certain size? Or how does this idea pay my family for years to come, for generations to come? You got to think about business differently. Otherwise, if you think about it in a short space, a lot of these traps we're trying to avoid you from falling into, they will become powerful traps. And so, going back to space to grow your business, making a transaction is not enough in a business. I don't give a fuck if you have the best sales day, sales week, sales month, sales year. It's not enough. If you got momentum, you should be prepping the new market that you're going to tap into or the new space of growth you're going to grow into. If you don't, you only might be successful for a short season. It's like winning the lottery in business.
Yo, we talked last week about getting caught up. So I took a Saturday afternoon off. Just me and my girl went to go get something to eat, and we just sat and talked for like 3 hours, just recapping, just trying to, man, how you been? How you been? What's up? How you doing? Type of shit. And so within that 3 hours, my business brain started flowing again. It was almost like ideas came, like, what if we do this? And what if we change this? And what if we move this to here? And it was like, where you been, bro? Like, and that part of me was like, motherfucker, you been too busy to even consider what I was doing. So it's like, almost that point, I saw the math equation, like, oh, if I rest a little bit, then that gives my brain time to recoup and regenerate new ideas. And it's so counterintuitive. It's so counterintuitive because it's like swinging the saw and not wanting to let. And I know we're about to get into this next slide, but not wanting to let go. And it's so important for us to have that space. And that's where your business growth is. Short term is like now money. I got to get it. We got to pay the rent. What about how we going to pay it? How we going to pay the rent? How we going to pay employees? How we going to pay ourselves? All that stuff. And it is important. But the other question that you have to ask is, how can I create the space for myself to recoup, to regenerate, to practice, to think about new ideas?
Yeah, because listen, let's say jobs come through the door. If you don't take time to analyze, should I take this job? You may wake up one day and take the job that destroys your business. Because that job compromises your business. That job asks you to do things that is not within your values of your business. That job puts you in a position to compromise relationships with quality customers, quality clients, our B2B relationships, business-to-business relationships. And so, as a business, you have to ask so many questions. Autopilot and a business owner is just, those two words should never be put in the same sentence. A business owner has to always analyze every move he or she makes. Why? Because at the end of the day, even remember the famous phrase, the road to hell is paved with good intentions? Sometimes a good idea could be a bad idea. But if you're in a moving, if you're in a do, run stage, you will grab hold to a lot of ideas, thinking they're great ideas, and you don't realize it's really unconsciously you are starting to do what you want to do, not what the business or the customer needs you to do. So this is critical. Next one.
So I got an illustration real quick. It's a real true example. So you know how in the jungle, do you know how they catch monkeys? What they do is they get a coconut and they drill a hole just large enough for the coconut to put his hand in, and they put food in the coconut. And so they sit back and watch. And guess what? The monkey comes up, sticks his hand in the coconut and grabs the food, but when he balls his fist, he can't pull his hand out. And the monkey is so greedy, and he doesn't want to let go of this food, that he will not let go of the food. So that means his hand is stuck in that coconut, and the trappers can just walk up to him and grab him and capture him because he will not let go of that fucking food. And that's sometimes how our brains will hijack us and reason with us with this type of shit.
Technician stage. I don't know if everyone followed it. That was pretty fucking on point. The only thing I would say is that when it comes time to transition from being a technician to running a business, it's not going to feel natural. And it's not going to feel like common sense. And you can unconsciously not make that decision for too long. Let me say this again. You can unconsciously not make that decision to change from being just a technician for way too long. Because it won't be an incident that goes, time to run. It's going to be, you're going to level off and you'll get used to this for a little while. But just what you don't realize, down the road, you'll get this. It's going to happen. Because this here is the beginning of the end. Where this is where you want to be kind of moving upwards, right? But what happens is that you could be a technician for so long, and you can fall in love with the praise, the transactions, right? Having just enough. I have a nice apartment. I have a nice car now. I take cool vacations here and there. But you think in your brain, because you don't want to change, the world won't change. But technician sets you up to fall because you don't make the proper adjustments, because your ability to make adjustments has been compromised because too much is in the process. And what I mean by that is that you get so wrapped up in how you feel, you're really running your business to stimulate your self-esteem, your reputation. You're not running your business to grow your business. And that shit becomes so blind, especially if you got a lot of transactions coming through. Especially if you raise your prices and the numbers are coming in. You can really start to believe that shit's going to stay that way. What you're going to find is when you hire people, if you don't lead them, they're going to compromise your dream.
Also, too, is within that technician mindset is warrior mentality in some instances. And so some of us who was athletes or warriors or in the streets, whatever, sometimes that warrior mentality is not a good mentality in business, because you have to really peel away, because your body internally says you gotta fight to the end. You gotta fight to the death. You gotta play to the clock is at zero. Your all, give it your all to the play. And so when shit gets bad, you've trained yourself to be like, hey, whatever happens, if it's 15-on-1, fuck it. Like, I've already committed to this game, this life. If I die, I die. Or I'm down by 20. I'm gonna play like I'm gonna play hella hard till it's over. That mentality in business does not translate over. And it's so hard, y'all. It's so hard to not think that way. Because when you in the trenches, If you ever reached a point in your life where you're like, fuck it, it's about to go down, whatever happens, happens, that can click in bad times in business too. So then you're like, well, fuck it then. And there's a sense of loyalty in your mind, like you're going to get some reward in the afterlife or something. That if that do, you're going to go up and God going to be like, yo, you was down, bro. Like, you about it. You with the shit. That's not going to happen. In business, it's non-emotional. It's about pivoting and making good decisions, making right decisions, learning, moving, and harmonizing and balancing between your manager and your entrepreneurial mind and being like, shit, the numbers show this. Let's go here. And that, like, us, black folks, I feel like that's something that's a struggle because we're so used to having tough times and living and swimming around in tough times. And so, our parents were like, it's gonna be okay. We're gonna get through it. Just deal with it. And you doing all the poor hood shit, and you learn how to swim around in the bad shit. This is part of that world, and you got it. Like, it's so counterintuitive. It's like flying an airplane. Like, what's up is not up, what's down is left, and what's left is in the diagonal, and you got to be in manual mode to really do this shit.
Well said. I just want to say, I'm going to go back to the space to grow is required. I just want to say something real quick about this one. I left out. Henry Kissinger brought up this point. He said, once people receive a government job, they stop thinking. I would argue that happens to a lot of human beings. Because you know what happens? Before you get a job, you'll sit back and go, hey, we did this, it didn't work out. Let's think about that. Let me try this. Let me think. You want to learn, you're curious. Quite often you get so busy working, you stop thinking. And I mean, that's why, if COVID was a private company, then we got an F. If government was a private company during COVID, they got an F.
Yeah.
Because the way the government performed for COVID, like, we have low expectations, so we don't expect much more. But you told everybody to shelter in place and you said $2,800 in 1 year. You got an F, baby. Then on top of that, your marketing was all splintered and y'all was internally fighting and then releasing that communication to the public. You get an F. You over there talking about build a wall against Mexico and cops should be and the cops and George Floyd. You get an F, pimpin'. Like, you didn't understand the importance of holding the morale. All this country really has is morale. If this country loses morale, the economic system falls apart. You understand? Like, if a military breaks into a country and goes to war, they want to make sure, hey, how much infrastructure did we leave in place? How many lives did we take? And how much morale did we damage? Morale damage is a thing, right? And so at the end of the day, I just wanted to say real quick, as businesses, that getting busy thing, stop, like he just said, stop wearing it as a badge. All right, next one. This is the coldest one. I'm gonna keep it simple. We're gonna cover this in a different the next slide as well. When you start a business, there's things we don't like. I'm not a good writer. I'm not a good reader. I don't like accounting. I don't like taxes. You know what? I don't like that marketing shit. You know what? I don't like, that's a technician talking inside of you. Here's the thing. You can't hire what you don't understand. You don't have to become an expert in everything, but you have to be familiar with what you're about to hire. You have to get some experience. You hire somebody and you don't understand what they're doing, or you don't understand the job description, or you don't understand the skill level or the skill level that's required to execute the job. You just hire somebody else that's hijacking your company. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, you got to get past the limiting beliefs. We talked about this earlier in the year. Limiting beliefs is this stage here. You're a business owner now. It's your first hire. And of course, you're going to hire a technician, right? Because you need more technicians to run your business. But after a while, you start saying, oh, I'm glad you handled that because I don't know nothing about that. You don't have to own that field, but you have to understand how it works. Otherwise, That's a hole in your strategy, a huge hole in your strategy. But when you break limiting beliefs, you literally can't imagine doing that other role or understanding that other role because your brain, you're going, well, how am I supposed to understand writing? I'm not really into that. Like, okay, for example, so most of the stuff you see that's airing this class live online, I learned in a few weekends. Ask me how much streaming I was doing before then. 0. I know shit about streaming. I know something about quality lighting because I'm an ex-photographer. Well, photographer is hobby, not professional now. And I don't know shit about sound. I can't rap to save your goddamn life. I sound like white people trying to rap. I'm bad, right? And I knew nothing about streaming. Nothing. I ain't never worked for streaming. Dre does video around the company. I learned about basic video because I have to manage that department. But what I did was, I said, when I first looked at streaming, I became overwhelmed. But I embraced that feeling because I know that's part of the human experience. So then I chunked it. I took little pieces at a time and looked words up. I watched videos on little small words. As I'm reading something, I'm like, what do you mean by that? What do you mean it's compression rate? What are you talking about? All right, and watch a video on compression rate. And within 2 weekends, I came in like, okay, we're going to order this, we're going to order that. I'm going to build it out this way. I'm going to test it this way. Marquis said, how the hell you learn this? YouTube. 2 weekends. Right? But I broke it into small pieces. Everything can be broken into small pieces. The problem is, like, if I want to learn how to build a rocket, and I was willing to invest the emotional energy into learning how to build a rocket, I would just commit the time to learning. I don't sit down and focus on. I remember the other day I was in the gym and Silence. You know, we cap hard at nighttime. Me, Silence, and Kevin Allen. We go in hard jokes. So at some point I was calling Silence an old man, and Silence said, "Well, you can't outrun me." Or no, he said he's going to run on the treadmill, and I started telling jokes about him being on the treadmill, right? Because I can make it sound soft. So I just went all the way with the soft jokes. And he goes, "Yeah, but you can keep up with me, right?" Yeah, today I can. But if I believe I wanted to, I could. And if I believe I wanted to, I believe I could beat you. But that would require emotional commitment that I even give a shit about. But I don't feel I can't. That's the point I'm making of this. My mind never said, well, no, you could not. No, you never could beat him. And he's like, I think he's almost 8 years younger than me, right? The point I was arguing is that once you understand that a lot of your limitations are in your mind, it lets you know that if you want to go to the next level, you just have to be willing to spend the emotional energy to make that shift, right? And so in this area here, when you're hiring people, those areas you don't like, you got to get over that emotional space because it's just emotional. No one says you can't do books. It's just emotional.
Yeah, what the book calls it, hiring by abdication, not by delegation, which means you're running from it because you don't like it. And I've been hurt by that because I used to say I don't like sales. So as soon as I hired my first salesperson, I ran. Y'all got this department. Up, hire a second, third, fourth one. It was 4 people in that sales department. I knew I didn't even touch it. But then if it was crumbling, it was falling apart. There was no real systems in place because they were all technicians, no managers. So who's going to write up sales processes and follow up with them and make sure that they're making their phone calls? I threw it at one person, Bobby, and Bobby ain't capable of none of that shit. So guess what happened to the sales department? Crumbled. Right? It crumbled. And then I yelled and screamed at everybody until I end up having to do sales. And then I end up liking sales. And I end up loving sales. Then I meet this brother and I learn hella games. So then it starts being a fun game. Still at a certain point I got to hire again, but it's a different thing because now I've been in the space enough to at least know how to manage.
Next one. Hiring LeBron James. So where are you going with this one, Nana? A lot of times we hire people as to say, I want this person to save me. I'm looking for a superstar. Let me say this first. If you believe in this idea, you're looking to give your company away. You know when you hire somebody like if you hire a superstar, you're not the general manager like you used to be anymore. right? You're not the coach like you used to be anymore. Everything's compromised if you're looking for LeBron James. Usually LeBron James costs you so much money when you're growing a business. Usually you're going to have to hire somebody on the bench and develop them. That's usually what business is about. It's about development. And why often we can't develop people? One of the reasons we can't develop people is because we have poor systems. If you have a strong system, if you thought about that role as a role when you first developed it, and you documented that role and what does the task require. Matter of fact, Five Team Media is going through that right now. We had a huge surge of growth. And the first thing I told my staff is, hey, we got to work on our roles. So right now we're doing our org chart. Org chart for even roles that are not here. Why are we doing an org chart for roles that are not here? Because later on, we need to understand as we build out that role, or as we serve that role as a team, we structure that role, document that role, and design the role where the person who comes into the shoe of that role doesn't have to have the highest level of skills. If you design your roles where everybody in your team has to be A's, you've already set yourself up for failure, because finding a whole bunch of A's is close to impossible. So you have to design systems that will allow you to have some C's and D's and maybe a couple of F's and still perform at a high level. Mm-hmm. And yet we build our whole system looking for nothing but Avengers and superheroes and wonder why we are already compromised. And so part of that has to be that we have to slow the process down and realize, okay, if it's built for an A, it's probably because I designed it myself. And at the end of the day, I don't really know how to design a position.
And A's typically can smell that you hired them as an A. So over time,
ooh, man, they come at you hard.
Then it's going to be a problem. If now they can leverage their position on your laziness, and now it's a problem 2 years from now. Now they talking shit to you. Now they doing what the fuck they want to do. I feel like this is not the opposite, but it's close to the polarization of being the person who got to do everything themselves because they're so special, so important, so important, so important. The opposite of that is just throwing your position out at somebody and running from it. There's harmony somewhere in there where if you lean too far to the left, it's damaging. You leave too far to the right, it's damaging.
So be careful with that. In addition to that, get rid of that idea of somebody's here to save you, and you'll be all right. I think what sets us up to hire LeBron James is we're looking for we think, okay, this is just not working out. I just need that perfect person. And if you have that mental model, when that person comes in, it's almost like you get emotionally lost. Even though you heard what we said tonight in class, but if your first approach was, I need somebody to save me, when that person that comes through that looks like LeBron James, which is about to hijack your company, take it away from you, you don't realize, because of your emotion, you will not listen to anything we just said, because you're like, oh, this feels so good. Oh my God, you're so fucking brilliant. Oh, how much did we make off of some shit you just did? Oh my God, this is the great. And that person will pick up on it.
Man. And
once they pick up on that, they will hold your company hostage.
Yep.
They will get attitude some days. And guess what? The whole company has to sit around and make them feel comfortable because they got attitude. Mm. Because you built your company around these super highlights, as opposed to build your company where if somebody underperforms, or if you have to switch a person out, I can get somebody up and running in 2 weeks. Let's go.
So let's talk about this in basketball terms.
Go ahead.
So you take, NBA is lazy. All they do is look for superstars. They're looking for the next LeBron James because it's an easy spike in wins, period. But then you got teams like the Spurs, who they built their system, and you have to fall within the system. Tim Duncan, give a fuck if you're a superstar. You're going to fit within the system. You're going to get 11 points and 11 rebounds for a while until you can get your rhythm within the system. And then we win championships. Now, you take the Lakers, they got the money, so all they do is find Showtime. But you look at the Warriors. The Warriors is so overlooked in how brilliant their model was. There was no first round, there was no top 1, 2, 3, 4 draft picks in the Warriors super team roster. But they built a system that allowed those players to look like superstars. because they were disciplined enough. They all had chips on their shoulders, and they played within the rhythm of the system. And the coaches gave them freedom within their strengths, but they still were all humble enough to know their role and be humble. That's why the whole Kevin Durant, Draymond Green shit popped off, because Kevin Durant comes from the idea of being used to being a superstar. So then when he comes in with that superstar shit, Draymond Green is like, don't fuck up our rhythm we got right now. We don't need your ass. And so that's basically telling him, look, we don't hire LeBron James. This is just a great situation, but you have to humble yourself and be a technician with the rest of us. So the sweet spot is when you can build your system where you can replace people interchangeably is dope, but then the people within the system can build their strengths to where they look like superstar. They perform at their highest level, and they shoot in half court. And if they miss, the coach is like, "Nah, good job. I like that confidence." So they start making those motherfuckers. So that's where we want to be as entrepreneurs in business.
So let's talk about the adolescent stage. So now you move into the adolescent stage. And it talks about this, how the technician goes to sleep and now the manager takes lead. This is still a dangerous space. You're about to loop back to being a technician again. Why? Because all you're doing is hiring people to allow you to do what you really want to do. As opposed to you making yourself obsolete as far as roles and moving into a position as seeing people, the individuals as part of a body, and you need to understand how the body comes together. And then and if one part of the body is compromising, like for example, anybody ever hurt a weird muscle and realized, oh shit, I know this is gonna mess with my life. Say you hurt something on your leg and you found you couldn't reach for something, or you hurt something in your shoulder and you found you couldn't walk a certain kind of way. You're like, what the hell, right? Well, when you're running a business, you see all the pieces forming a body. But it's a problem when you're just one of the parts on the body. It's almost like your body without a brain. It's almost like you can move, you're strong, but you remember the old phrase musclehead? Why did they call certain men musclehead back in the day? Because he was super, super buff, but he was highly unintelligent, right? Well, this is what a business looks like when you first hit adolescent stage, is that you're bringing people in to support you, but you don't realize when you bring people in, you got to bring them into a system. Otherwise, all you have is people just working on task, which allows some of the pressure to fall off of you, right? The next one that he already hit was, and what do? We fall into abdication over delegation. So delegation requires for me to be clear on what your deliverables are and what I expect of you and what system I hired you to be a part of. Abdication is, I literally just surrender the role to you. All right, you take this. Okay, I'm gonna go over here. Since you got this, I'm gonna go over here. You got that? Okay, I got this. You got this over here? Here's the thing. In order for you to have a strong branding structure, a strong business structure, every employee and every touch point of your company has to echo the same message. Every person and every touch point has to echo the same message. Every person that you engage in should be a miniature version of what the company represents. When you lead by abdication, you are literally putting strangers in roles inside your company who don't carry your brand. And people are starting to do jobs the way they want to do jobs. This is what I did in my previous job. Even if that job was let's say that job was a poor performer than yours, or they wasn't as agile, they weren't nothing like your company. You're bringing their behavior patterns into your company because you asked for nothing different. And so ultimately, you have to be very, very, very clear when you bring people in. You're not bringing them in to fill spaces of things you're too busy to do, or you don't have time to do, or you don't want to do. You're bringing them into a plan that you've been thinking out from the day you started your business. You just keep thinking, from the day you started your business, when you started your business, your goal was, I want to build a business. If you're trying to build a business, from that day, you should be thinking about roles. Even the role, the only person is just you. What is this role I'm playing? How can this role be broken out? Is there a situation where they break this role out? What would that look like? What is the expectations? It is so, look, When Fight TV first went through our growth, we were blowing up so fast, and money was coming in so fast. We were like, hey, come in and take that position. As soon as we got a chance to breathe, we was like, okay, we got to define your position. Because you just kind of hanging around looking for paychecks. That's going to kill us. And it ain't their fault. It's my fault. But, and mind you, everybody goes to that stage. You just got to know that you got to go to the next stage. What you don't want to do is to do the other two, which will come up later on. And of course, when this happens, because you grew by abdication, you don't realize you're going to become super, super busy. So the manager will come to you and be like, hey, how should you do this? Hey, look, Court, you got this? Can you take care of this for me? Right? Ashley comes to me, okay, Ashley, what do you think it should be done? And you're like, man, look, I don't have that much bandwidth. Can you just solve it for me tonight? This is slow withering of your company. You may, or let's say you start your company and the people around you happen to be intelligent. And you sit back and you smile, man, they're doing a good job. Man, this is amazing. Customers love us. We're doing real good. Man, you look at them numbers. Look at our bank account. Oh my God, this is great. That's the same thing. Because you didn't design their jobs. And when you're leading them from a position. Okay, for example, the reason when I had to give up photography, it wasn't an easy surrender. But I realized I was trying to lead the team as one of the rowers, as opposed to sitting on the front of the boats going row, row. We're not giving, in the backside, you're not getting enough energy. Front side, I need you to do it this way. Or I need you to turn the rotor to this way. I wasn't in that position. I was rowing the boat and I was missing things because I was in the wrong position. And so at this point, you becoming, like I said earlier, you becoming busy, bad thing.
Also, abdication. You also set your people up. Because a lot of times, if you're not engaging with them, if you're not holding them accountable, then they have no checks and balances in their head. So for the most part, they think they batting 1,000. And that creates ego. And ego creates opinions from a super short-sighted perspective. Because if they're a technician, that means they're playing one role. They're the eye, or they're the left hand. And if you're, as a manager and an entrepreneur, you see the whole body, but they only see the business from this perspective. So then they coming at you, arguing with you, telling you what you need to be doing just from this one little perspective. And you're like, bro, you don't even know the whole story. You don't know what's going on. But if you're not communicating, and if you're not following up, or just having checks and balances with their role, then the head can get swole. I'm having this happen right now. And because our guy, he's super dope, and I abdicated the role. And so now he thinks his shit don't stink. So I have to slowly bring him down to a space of like, bro, chill. Let me open this door for you. You know why I asked you to do that? Look. Oh shit. You know why that's wrong? Because now I have to explain everything. I have to explain the whys to my decisions, because in his mind, it's like he's been in a house by himself for hella long. Nobody's been there to do anything. So kids running wild. So it's hella important, and you have to backtrack and go spend more quality time in order to get people lined up in that direction.
Yeah, that ego thing, man. You can really, because when they don't have direction, then they become victims of their own stories. Right? If you don't give people clear, you see the music groups all the time, right? Like I was watching. I know Elijah from Tony. I know all the Tonys, right? We all went to school together, and they were hella mad at Raphael and Dwayne, like, oh, they left us behind. They, right? And I talked to Dwayne about it. Of course, I talked to Raphael about it. And what the biggest problem was is, it was kind of abdication, right? They just kind of like, things came and things was happening. Now, Dwayne knew what the hell was going on because he was running the group, right? And so he had a plan. But he was just kind of like, yo, help me out. We blowing up. You come through. Let's do this, right? And then all of a sudden, Elijah's like, well, why did I get this kind of money? Do you play the bass? You're not even the tightest bass player in California. But at the time, you my boy playing the bass, right? But that's not Elijah's problem. That's not Elijah's fault. If we don't build structure and give clarity to people, Then Elijah turned himself into the greatest bass player. He is, as far as he's concerned, he is Bootsy, and for whatever reason, James Brown didn't fuck with him, and you don't understand what's going on. But that is not that you don't go this way. But
That's real
you,
shit.
and Dwayne can get mad at Elijah, but he has to understand. Yeah, but you set him up to believe that story because you gave him no story. You guys don't go with this? So, and it's not, like I said, I love all those cats, and all those cats are beautiful cats, but I think people miss the point. In music, you know, like when you get signed a contract, you see an artist on Unsung 10 years from now, because for some reason, they told themselves a different story. Now you got people from the 2000s, 90s, 80s, 70s, 60s, and 50s will tell you, nah, that shit ain't true, pimping. But when that contract came through, story. And before you know it, when the truth hits the ground, you're like, oh, they betrayed me. No, they didn't.
Yo, you watched that Nelly interview? That Nelly interview with about Nelly and the Saint Lunatics, and the Saint Lunatics was telling the same thing, that they wasn't getting paid enough, they wasn't getting paid what Nelly was getting paid, and all this shit was, and it wasn't fair, it wasn't true, and like Nelly was getting all the more of the money, and they were all going on tour with them, but their checks wasn't bigger than Nelly. Nelly got on in the interview, was like, check this out. When I signed the record label didn't want none of them motherfuckers. They only wanted me. So they only signed me. So when I took them on tour, it was because they were my friends and I was trying to show them love. I was writing them checks. Not the label. So then it's like, oh, is the table turned? Is the tables turned now? It's like, oh, thank you, Nelly. I appreciate that shit. No, they still in their feelings. Right?
Yeah, because once again, it's if you as a company, and who went wrong on that one? Nelly should have told the story much more aggressive. If you told the story much more aggressive, then them cats would be upset. And so, but it's easy for us. That's why I said, when you start labeling, you know, that's racist or they stupid. Look, that stuff works when you ain't building shit. But when you building stuff, start asking why more. If something irritates you, okay, fine. No one said you shouldn't be irritated. Now lean into it. Even if you express your anger for a second, like, what the fuck? This dude done pissed me the fuck off. Then sit back and go, what could have been done different? Mm-hmm. That's where the knowledge comes from. Not from leaning into your emotions, your feelings, your beliefs, your ideologies, and this is who you can't move me, this is what I believe in. Let that shit go.
Fuck your feelings.
Hey, fuck you. Oh, by the way, I said to somebody, fuck your feelings. I think somebody online said, wait a minute, but feelings are valid. Of course feelings are valid. Of course feelings are valid. Like, when we say fuck your feelings, we're saying fuck when you use your feelings as a weapon.
In business.
Right? We see feelings is being sharpened and weaponized. But yet we know business is based upon feelings. Like, marketing is all about emotional strategies. Emotions have developed a bad name, but everybody's emotional. There ain't no such thing as a non-emotional human being. That old dumbass myth of women being more emotional than men, man, if y'all don't cut that shit out, we express it differently. We may communicate some things differently, or we may express it differently at different times. I would argue that we are more similar than we want to talk about, right? But calling emotions as a sign of weakness is a straight myth. Emotions is how we move as animals. That's why it's important to develop emotional intelligence. EQ, not just IQ. I just want to say that. Okay, anyway. Adolescent growth. So, can you grow as an adolescent? Sure the hell can. You can grow as an adolescent. This is the thing this is where we're going with this, and this is why I take a little time on this one. Because in the book of E-Myth, I think this is the biggest space where it's an illusion. And if I talk to you if I tap you on the shoulder and try to talk to you about strategy, you're not going to want to listen to me. You're like, man, I'm growing. What the fuck you talking about? Now, look at my bank account. Look at my, I can promise you right now, a lot of the top performing black businesses right now in our community is suffering from adolescent growth. They got money. They just don't have a strong business. And they're still technicians with a whole bunch of technicians around them. But they will convince you, and they will be so convinced they killing it because their bank account's strong. So adolescent growth is a real thing. You can go from 1 employee to 30 employees supporting you as another technician. Here's when it goes bad. This is that foresight shit that when we tell you about it, you won't see any evidence. What's the phrase? The famous phrase, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Some of y'all need to sit down. Those of you who smoke weed, it's not time. This is not a cue. Don't just, I need to light up. That's some deep. No, it's not that deep. So absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. But in business, a lot of times when you're in adolescent growth, because you don't see the evidence, then as far as you're concerned, it doesn't exist. And what I'm trying to highlight to you is that the second, like you may have came out of that space of being a technician, you was doing everything yourself. You was busting your ass up every morning. You was answering every call. You was doing everything yourself. So finally, you got a team of 6 or 7 people, and now those 6 or 7 people resulted in 6 or 7% growth, or 6-time growth. And you're like, no, look, 6 people. I'm making 6 times more than I used to make, and I got people on vacation. I'm paying wages, and you don't realize you're fragile as shit. Here's when it goes bad. Is when shit starts to break and you realize that you can't control it. You realize you didn't design it, and you realize you don't even know how to design it. And you know why you don't design it? Because you want everybody to be a replication of you. And the problem with being a replication of you, that's impossible. The first rule of business is that when you hire somebody to take over your role, they should be a minimum of 10% weaker than you are. A minimum of 10% weaker than you are. The system should make up for the weakness. And half the time, let me add another layer to it. Most of the time, a client and customer in B2B will not know in a 10% drop. They won't know. You can design a system to actually make that person who's 10% weaker look 20% stronger if the system is strong enough. What happens quite often is that you hire, thinking about an employee as a technician, not being plugged into a system, and then when you hire them and they underperform, your frustration with them is because your whole mental model of hiring people is skewed. We're going to open up some questions in a little bit because I know this is going to be full of some questions. So the adolescent growth is the coldest illusion to death I've ever seen. It is a sneaky, because you're going to feel more customers. You may open up 2 offices now. You may have a company vehicle. You may have your personal banker. All these things going to feel really, the community's like, oh my God, your business done blew up. You're going to look like you blew the fuck up. You're paying for health care for 10 or 15 people. You're paying your employment insurance, employment taxes. You're like, oh my God, I'm doing great. And you're on your way to death. Because your model is wrong. And this is the hardest one, right? And like I said, you get to the next point. Customer complaints come in. First complaint comes in. Well, why did you do it this way? Why did you do it that way? And your anger that you're putting out towards them is because you hired them without a proper system for them to measure their own personal growth. They're not even managed. There's no one even talking to them. There's no one even interacting with them. Everybody's running around your company with a paycheck with their own agenda.
And everyone's handling customer complaints and situations differently.
That's how I handle it for my last company.
Yeah, so it's not a routine system. So if I call at 4:00 and get employee number 1, I'm gonna get a completely different experience than if I call at 6:00 and get employee number 2. That's the other problem. So this is when the breakdown starts.
Now, real quick, if we just pause here for a second. Can you start to see now some of the flaws in black businesses? It ain't racial. It ain't because we got like some excuse the language, pause, quote unquote, some old nigga shit. That's not what's happening. This is why I said we got to be careful of these racial terms we're using because it's creating distortion when we're not thinking. This is called people who don't understand business, who are trying to develop jobs as opposed to developing companies, trying to develop long-term employment as opposed to creating jobs for people in the community. Right? And so these are typical mistakes that happen. And these are mistakes that happen in other races, but we can't see it because our self-hatred, every time black people see this is what I tell you, when niggas start businesses, this is what happens, right? No, it's not the case whatsoever. What we're witnessing is people who can't see systems and patterns.
Yeah. It's normal growth. You're going through it. This is growth. The dope part is that as you're growing and you're learning, if you're experiencing this, you're doing pretty damn good. If you can get to this space,
You have a solid service or
you
product.
have a solid foundation.
But
of
you
what
have to change
do.
your model, otherwise you are going to destroy it.
Yeah.
The market's not going to destroy it, you're going to destroy it. So now you discover folks ain't doing the stuff the way you wanted to do it. You know, I'm going to take it back. You know, I'm going to do that myself. And guess what? That's the downhill journey. You just started the downhill journey of destroying yourself. Because now you're so busy to the point that now you're underperforming as a business. So now my windows might not be clean in my business. Now, you know, certain service things I would have had in place before, like customer touch, is probably gone now. Now, projects are falling behind. Now, quality is dropping off. Now, my attention to placement, my warranty system, the 5 Ps of marketing, those things are starting to collapse because it's just me now because I'll start taking jobs back. Because in the end, you can't perform the way I would perform. Because why? You're still, you're managing, but you're still on some technician shit. Which is, you're comparing people. For example, okay, imagine you're an artist. This is really, like every artist in this class, really hear me out. You first start doing art to earn credibility in the community. So now you want to transfer to running a business. And when you hire other artists to do artistic jobs you think that would represent your company, you're not trying to figure out how to move art in a community. You're trying to use people to amplify your reputation. So now you get mad at employees and everybody because they're not doing what you expect them to do. But what you don't realize is that you never gain clarity on what the fuck they're supposed. Like, you haven't designed a job where it's almost ignorance proof. That requires a lot of work. That requires thinking different. But growth, the best way to destroy a bad company is grow the company. Almost. I'm gonna open up in a few minutes because we're gonna open up and we're gonna stop at 8 o'clock, which is 7 minutes from now. Open up for questions and then do equals and enemies. So I'm gonna just work on time control as opposed to flowing, and then I feel like that doesn't solve some of the problems. So,
Did she put a pause next to that? Balls?
hey, to me, balls. To me.
Oh, my
hey,
God,
Hey, balls.
man.
Hey, look here, Mike. Look. When I said it, I had to say it to myself 20, 30 times so I can get past all that because, first of all, I saw Tone Vic's face going pause. And I thought to myself, I ain't about to put up with this anymore. So I'm going to say it so I can get over myself because Donna was pausing. I'll be like, tell me about to the pause, man. Come on, pause, bro. So, but it's I'm willing to push past my humor and my comedy to say, I don't need the women pause me too. But I'm willing to push past my comedy and my humor to say this. That busy shit, working 12-hour days, doing tasks, is insane. It's insane. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're not spending some of my time in building relationships, observing, reading, making decisions, contemplating, thinking, analyzing, auditing, looking for the traps of your biases and your mental distortions, you're not running a company. You still have a job, even with employees. That's the first sign you should know. But just know, it's gonna feel good before the fall. It's gonna be like the cocaine of the game. You're gonna be, I smell so. I feel my nose is wide open, and next thing you know, you run down the street talking about, who got $1 for me? I know, I just went to. That's my great of mine.
Is that your crackhead? Who got $1 for me?
Yeah, they don't know crackhead.
Who got $1
What the hell's
for me?
that? Is that you, Whitey? Nah, baby. Anyway, okay, I'm going somewhere else. Anyway, so evolving on an adolescent stage requires leaving the personal comfort zone. Like we said, it's gonna be a comfort zone. It's gonna feel good, man. You might be driving a Benz in this space. You might even have $1 million in a bank account. I'm warning you, this stage is not going to feel like you need to leave it. You know how you date somebody just good enough? And then later on, maybe you met them when you was in high school. We talking about. I don't want to mess with no older relationships. Let's say you met somebody in high school and they happen to draw the same color you drew and happen to play on the same sport teams you played on, or they happen to like the same music you liked, and you're like, oh, I like her. And you go out with her and you laugh at each other's jokes. Then you hit about 23, 24, 25, you realize, wow, this is it, huh? Hey, I'll be at 100. And you realize you chose because abdication. You just surrendered to it. You didn't choose, you didn't make a choice. Right? There's a lot of baby daddies like they cut it out now. Cut it out. Cut it out. And you chose that person. And then later on you realize you had a choice, but you didn't even know it at the time. For whatever reason, I don't get to low self-esteem or whatever you was going through, or maybe that person just caught you at the right time and handed you a towel when it was raining. I don't know. And leaving that person is not about just leaving them because there's better options. Sometimes leaving them is hard because it's just comfortable where you at. You grow up to be that couple who just wears trench coats and go to birthday parties all the time. You know what I'm talking about. Oh, no, they wear the three-quarter leather coats so everybody can hide their stomach and be at the party. All right, y'all act like I don't know what I'm talking about. All right, whatever. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Y'all know what I'm talking about. First I told my wife, I said, babe, this weight shit ain't cool because I'm not wearing no quarter leather coats and hanging on my partners. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. You know what I mean? I'm not doing, or wearing an extra puff clothes to my hip hop. You 65, you ain't hip hop, bro. You fat. Anyway, I just want to say that real quick. So the comfort zone is hard to get past. Hard to get past. I'm saying it, but I don't really. I'm driving this point home because I don't think you guys understand how hard it's going to be. It's easy to talk about this in theory. This is why I think you need entrepreneurs around you to help you see that space, because you won't be able to see it by yourself. I promise you it's going to be hard to see. And if your ego grows and you're not developing ego training, you will literally defend your role even though you're in the wrong space. I just want to say this last point, and then we're going to open up to some questions. Know this. So when you're a technician, you love control. And when you're a manager, you love control. When you decide you want to become an entrepreneur, you lose control. You build systems you build stories and narratives and systems that will control the behavior of people. You build smart relationships that control the behavior of people. You build leverages and tension and friction to control behavior. What you don't do is control behavior. Because why? No, that doesn't mean that you don't manage people, because you will build systems to manage people. You just don't micromanage anything. Yeah. Because that's that technician in you. And the larger the company grows, you just won't be able to see it. If you have 100 employees, I promise you won't know at least half of them. It's not possible. That's where we want to be, right? We want to be at a point where if you have offices in different cities, you're not going to know those people. Doesn't mean that you don't try to reach out to them. You don't what do they say, hand out an olive branch to people and so you can make connection with folks. But just know that control changes its face. You are controlling the company, but not by your typical ways you did when you started your business. It's more of a bigger picture, bigger understanding, building systems that control itself. Now, with that being said, we're going to open up some... Go ahead. Yeah,
so the three, like the technician, the entrepreneur, and the manager, right? So the lose control part sometimes is those three internal that are inside you. If you're coming up with ideas, and those ideas are big, those ideas are end-state ideas, they're end goals, then it's the manager's part of you to say, all right, let me chunk these goals down into processable items so that they can actually be attacked. And then the technician is the one that does them. So when you build your company, it's the same strategy. So the out of control part is like, damn, your manager is looking like, this shit is crazy. Like, really, you want to do that? And you're like, yeah, I want to do that. And let's figure out how we're going to get there and put it in a processable way so that we can hand those items to a technician and they can knock it down. But it's good. Like I was reading the Zappos book with the founder of Zappos. He died, but and he was saying we never wanted to feel comfortable. We wanted to feel uncomfortable at all times, and if we ever felt comfortable, we rallied together and we was like, something's wrong. And that's because that's the tension in the growth stage. That's the tension in the growth phase. And if you're living in that tension, that means you're always on the outskirts of your comfort zone, which means you're always growing.
All right, we'll bring some questions to forefront. Herself. I said, is there any questions she wanted? She almost broke her neck. Her hand almost made sense. She had to put herself back like, calm down, girl. Let's keep some structure. Go ahead, Shamisha.
This one comes from Kaja, and
What's up, Kaja?
she says, do entrepreneurs typically forego some kind of recurring performance review process altogether, or does it just come together more informally? Like, how do you check? What's the process to check yourself
Okay.
or to measure your performance? What does that look
If you don't
like?
have a circle of people, you don't. That's why a lot of businesses fall. Remember, only 3 to 5% of businesses actually make it. In some cases, 1 or 2%, right? And that's why we're saying that, Kaja, that's why we're saying that if we don't have an environment where entrepreneurs are constantly learning, talking, engaging, debating, communicating, it is extremely easy for an entrepreneur to get caught into bad systems. That's why this ego thing, which we're going to hit after we finish this Q&A, developing systems and people around you, because that's the only value. Like, okay, you can look at your numbers, but you can do everything right and still have a bad flow. So sometimes you can get caught into a point where you fall into illusion, like, oh, we're going through bad times, but it's a market adjustment. We just got to make our adjustments, or we got to figure out what adjustment we need to make, right? But it might be that you made a whole bunch of bad decisions that over here, and the chickens are coming home to roost. And quite often, you cannot see how you're performing when you're living and you're learning to function in isolation. That's one of the main reasons entrepreneurs are so damn humble and so damn curious, because we don't want that to happen. We have to constantly evaluate ourselves all the time. Like, there's entrepreneurs in this class who are making a lot of money. That's some entrepreneurs in this class. But when the ones who I know that are very healthy entrepreneurs, when they talk with me or I talk with them, we put all that macho and that strong shit off the table, and we become very vulnerable. Why? Because I need to see the parts of myself I cannot see. I don't need to sit here and impress court. I need court to help me see my biases, right? That's what it really comes down to half the time anyway, is biases, right? And so your employees can evaluate you except on qualitative type stuff, how they feel about their work environment, and that's valuable. You need to get that feedback. But the type of stuff that really gets into some of these hidden decisions, because a lot of these decisions are really hidden, right? Especially the transition between out of the adolescent stage is really hidden to your employees. If you don't have other entrepreneurs who are rich in their processes and ideas, and you didn't just get a whole bunch of people around you to praise you, you walk off that cliff with the rest of the sheep.
Yes, so you have the quantitative and qualitative data, right, to look at. And some of that can be valuable, but also there could be blind spots in that, especially depending on the market trends, the waves. So it's looking at the data too. Okay, cool. But also, what's the wave? What's the trends? And what's the movement? And where are we at in the trend? And what are our pivots around it? What are our options in these situations? Say, for example, now, let's past year. So we say pandemic happened, all these companies died, everything crushed, and everything went bad for so many companies. But my company went good. We was good. We did good. That's dope. But if you were doing bad up until that point, and then this wave hit, and say you happen to be a woman entrepreneur that made masks, and you've been doing this whole time, and all of a sudden your company is blowing up, and you swimming in the celebration of that, then that's dangerous, because when they say, all right, no more masks, and you ain't done anything to expand or understand the trends because you're just looking at numbers, then you're gonna be fucked. So it's partially, yes, checking in quantitatively and qualitatively to your employees. There's surveys, there's all kind of shit that could tap in to see where people are. But if you aren't communicating with your employees and you're not communicating with other entrepreneurs around you who can take a good look at your business, and if you can't see the trends and the markets in your business and where you are with it, then it could be some blind spots.
And you can't, when you get, and you gotta learn how to receive feedback too. I noticed, like, I watch some of the responses in the group. I read them because that gives us some insights on how we can improve. So everything you guys talk about, we use it to improve the class. We don't use it to single somebody out, right? That's absolutely stupid. But what we found is that if you don't know how to create a feedback-friendly environment, you choke off that solution, right? Other thing is that the brain plays coach. Like, okay, this is not a really irrational, this is more of an irrational conversation. I think that's why I love this question Kaja asked. Because rationally, you should be able to look at your numbers and look at your bank account and go, I ain't doing all that good, right? Rationally, you should be able to look at your, when you walk in your office and see office going, I'm in the same building, I ain't doing all that good. Rationally, you should be able to compare what you're doing with your competition. But I'm telling you, man, your brain don't support that.
Oh shit, I'm talking all kind of shit.
Yeah, you know what it was? You know what it was? It's something that had to do with the Mac, had to do with us. Like the Mac received the signal, but we just unplugged it, plugged it back in. You know how to just reset the driver? So the driver somehow, something opened and corrupted the driver. So, because it kept defaulting to the internal, and it should have been internal for Blackmagic on that one. Yeah. So it kept, the sound kept doing something weird. When I kept trying to adjust it, it kept saying no, it didn't want to. So I just pretty much disconnected the Blackmagic, replugged it back in, and all of a sudden the sound worked. Should we go back a little bit, rewind that question just a little bit?
Yeah.
So we can make sure we're on point.
Yeah.
Ask the question again.
Sure.
Because I kind of got distracted. But no, thank you, team, for working through that one. Thank you for being calm and chill and mellow. That felt really good. I mean, we had a problem, but I love the way the team responded because I felt good about it. And as well as I enjoyed the, what I really liked was the intelligence of I felt when I went back there. It didn't feel like nobody was guessing. Marquita showed ownership. She crisis managed well. Josh was cool without crazy suggestions. And so it was really mellow. So, thank you, team. Anyway, so with that being said,
Ask it again.
ask the question again.
Yep, so question was, do entrepreneurs typically forego some kind of recurring performance review process?
Yeah,
And
so-
what's
so-
the process?
So that's why I belong into a group, having entrepreneurs around you, lowering your ego, being aware of your biases, practicing humility is a superpower.
Sure is.
Humility is a superpower. Practice humility, like a great entrepreneur is close as you're gonna get to a Christ on this earth. Like we practice super humble. Just stay away from all the current social justice trend of good and bad people. It's gonna trap you because those narratives are so distorted on human behavior. Like human behavior is distorted by a lot of things you hear in the media and popular trends you see on social media. And that's why this class is really targeting thinking different, because if you don't develop these things, in my lifetime, I'm 53, I've seen a lot of strong black businesses collapse because of ownership ego. A lot. I know a lot of black businesses that could be potentially phenomenal that are not growing because of ego, right? And so if you don't practice humility and you don't have a circle around you that help you become self-aware, that's all we really have. That's why I say in corporate jobs, they have systems for that. And when you build your business, you should build that. But for yourself, you got to go out and create that. It's not no one cares about you like that unless you make them care about you. Because entrepreneur can be a very, it's like you know how you call a loved one on the phone. Let's say you have a male friend. He's like a family friend, like when I say loved one, like a brother that you really love. And you say, "Hey, my man, I was doing something about your wife last night. She's kind of fucking up." You already know that's a bad space, right? You know, you just know as a man, you can't call another man and tell him, "I know something about your wife. She's making some mistakes in these areas," right? But for a lot of people, that's how they feel about your business. So you have to create a friendly space for them to be able to approach you and have that conversation. Otherwise, they will watch abusive relationship happen and not say shit, because it ain't my place. So you gotta go out and cultivate and create that space for people to exist in. People are not going to walk into that space.
Second question. So you were talking about when you're building a team about the 10%, like the next person you hire needs to be 10% worse.
They more likely will be.
So what does that look like really? Like what's a realistic thing?
Because so one of the ways you can help you map that out, you got to gain clarity on what the customers, see, a lot of times when you deliver a product to a customer, you're so in love with the quality that you deliver, you stop seeing what the quality the customer is expecting. Right? Like, you can make this, I'm going to use food because it's probably an easy example. You can make filet mignon, all they want is some beef. But you went all out your way to buy this high-end steak. Have you ever took somebody who ain't used to high-end food to a high-end restaurant before? Ain't that the hardest $200 in your life you ever to give up?
Or they get a burger?
It is the most painful experience ever, right? But sometimes you can be so in love with what you experiencing, you don't notice this person is treating that steak like it's beef jerky. They're drinking that wine like it's Kool-Aid. You know what I mean? But that happens, and when the dessert comes and it's small, they're like, "This all I get?" But it ain't their fault. You never paid attention to. They say they go to McDonald's all the time. All the time. And you over there taking them to a restaurant where the minimum you're going to spend per person is $150, right?
Trying to show them the finer things in life.
Hey, my comedic side almost slipped out on that one. But my point is that, and so, almost, only almost. And so what I'm arguing is that you got to pay attention to your customers and what are they really looking for. Quite often you realize you're overshooting some of your customers. I want a photo shoot, and you trying to shoot me like I'm about to be on Vogue tomorrow. When actually, if what the customer is asking for, they're not buying your photography, they're buying the emotion that photography gives them.
And in that case, you would show up to them and then work, if you wanted to work on something that was like Vogue, really intentionally go after that? Or would you let the idea of shooting something like Vogue go?
No. Okay, first of all, that's a business decision, because if Vogue doesn't make any money, that's a technician goal, then fuck Vogue. If you make more money, if you realize I can make more money and hire more people shooting bingo winners from Grandma Hall, then that's where we're gonna go as a business. I don't have to shoot the grandmamas from Grandma Hall and all the winners of bingo, but that's gonna make enough money to put my people to work. And if I want to shoot for Vogue, I can personally shoot for Vogue. But I'm going to understand I'm running a business. It's a big difference.
Is that similar to what Starbucks did with like what
Starbucks Reserve?
Versus
It's a different
Starbucks?
market. It's two different markets.
Yeah.
You can't take Starbucks and make it Reserve, otherwise you lose all your Starbucks customers, right? If you want to do something different, that's a different business model, right? Other thing is that it's okay if we decide as a person that we just want to create a job for, because that's the stage we're in, and that's fine. But when you talk about hiring somebody 10% weaker, if you're building a system to serve a market, when you talk about building a system to serve a market, it doesn't mean that you compromise quality. It means that you think about it as a system. So what does it take to replace you? Now, when you first replace you, you're not going to have 100% you. Otherwise, you're making the role almost impossible to fill, because also you're a biased judge. I mean, like, you'd be like, nah, we want to place your look in the class. And I'd be like, yo, I don't think Billy D. Williams is young enough no more. And you'd be like, nah, you live on goddamn Billy D. Williams. I'd be like, no, I'm just saying, okay, fine. I mean, if you have to use Denzel, then fucking use him, right? Like, this is how as human beings, we exaggerate our value, right? So replacing yourself is just as crazy as I sound right now, right? And so what I'm saying is that the 10% is the mental release you need to let the fuck go.
Yeah. That's where I was gonna go. Is just that's enough of a valve release. And if your processes are tight, you won't even know. No one even will know. If that person happens to be a LeBron James, that happens sometimes. It happens sometimes. But you're not looking for it. You're actually looking for the other. So then if they don't measure up to your standard of who your 100% has to be then you know that that's expected.
Okay, go ahead, Tone. Come on over here, Tone.
Tone Vic.
Shakira, do you have any questions today, or you'll wait till next session? Okay,
Cool.
good. Go ahead, Tone.
All right. Actually, I have a bunch of questions, but I'm only going to ask a few. Piggybacking off of what she just asked, actually, I had something similar. So, one, I do want to say you guys are killing it tonight.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. Shout out to
So
the team.
shout out to the team.
Yeah,
Kevin,
shout out to the team.
everybody.
There you go.
So I feel like for new entrepreneurs, budding entrepreneurs, new business people that are maybe reinventing themselves, especially people that are coming from the corporate world, we tend to are shown or taught or we see a lot that, like, let's say like Silicon Valley, for instance, they're always saying get the best of the best.
Yeah.
With an exception of Bill Gates when he said, some of the smartest people in the room are actually no smarter than you.
Wow.
So with the exception of him, this is the first time I'm actually hearing something like, get someone 10% less or whatnot, because we're always shown in American society or in the world that people only want the best. So when you guys said that, it kind of, when you brought up the LeBron James thing, I said to myself, wait a minute, but, how do we unlearn that when these startup companies or these $1 million companies or these Facebooks or whatever, they're constantly putting in our brain that, we're only looking for the best. We only want the best. So we tend, I won't generalize. I know I tend to say, well, I got to be the best in order to work for 510 Media, to work for Court Smith, because that's what they say to do. So I'm kind of
that's a tight question.
I'm kind of torn with this 10% part.
Yeah, first of all, that's a tight question. I think Court's going to answer, but tight question. Go ahead, Court.
Well, I think some of that data might be skewed. First off, because you take the two top companies in the world right now, you take Tesla and Amazon, guess who they hiring? Your partners,
Right.
both companies. Your partners is at Tesla right now working them 12-hour shifts. So that model is skewed. Now I think in certain particular situations, so say I may need a scientist that worked for NASA and has this degree because he has a puzzle piece that I need to help me solve this business equation, and there's only 4 of those in the world, and now I got the bread to hire them. I can throw money at them. But if you're building your business, for the most part, you built systems that are so raw that our partners work at Amazon right now in the warehouse or driving, or at Tesla right now in the factory. So that's what makes them brilliant.
Let me say this real quick too. I think you should look at Henry Ford before you look at Tesla. Yes, strategically, depending on the size of your company and the type of, like he said, type of competition, there's a time and place for everything, right? But if you ran a company right now that was breading you about $100 million a year, that model may not be your model. I think it depends the industry you're in and the level of competition. I mean, you're talking about a venture capitalist system that throws crazy cash to compete. Right. I mean, how long before Facebook even made a profit? How much money did they receive between that time? Right? The average 99.9% of businesses would never see any money like that, ever. right? So you can't use a lot of Silicon Valley business. Like, I don't even listen to Silicon Valley people at all, hardly, outside of Reed, something Reed. I can't think of his name right now, but and the reason I don't listen to most of them because I can't measure. Look. Every time you made a shot at the NBA, I give you 10 points, and every time he makes a shot, he gets 1. I can't compare you two, right? They are so over subsidized by venture capitalists, and quite often, once it reaches a certain level of maturity, they're not even part of the company at that capacity anymore. So when they finally retire with billions, and they're like, well, you know what I learned about business, I'm not sure if I really care. Because it's not relevant to, it's not that I don't care. I don't think that I'm not saying you're smart or dumb. I'm saying based upon where we are in our evolution, that's why that distortion of equality, we got to get off of that and start saying, hey, everybody's at different paces, different speeds, and different points in the evolution of business, right? If you just start saying, if you start using white people models for business to improve black businesses, you just missed us. Absolutely missed us because we had a different evolution point, right? You have to use white folks' models maybe in the 40s and 50s to understand where black people are today as far as their evolution. And realistically, like, think about this. Think about if the government tomorrow said, yo, black folks, we're going to subsidize the shit out of your businesses. We're going to make sure that those of you who got jobs going to have a job where you can buy a house by yourself. Number 2, we're going to pour money into your business where you almost can't lose. 3, we're going to give you contracts where you set the win. And 4, we're going to cripple competition. And we're going to run that for about 20, 30 years to get you up on your feet. Now that person is up on his feet, the grandchild of that person says, you know what you should do in business? Don't listen. Don't listen. You need to understand business from a pioneer game, which is how do you take a business from where you are right now and grow it at an exponential rate to turn it into a multi-million-dollar company that hires other people. And then put yourself in a position to be a local leader to impact the cultivation of the economic system for others to follow behind you, right? As opposed to what would Bill Gates do. So I think we got to turn down, and a lot of self-help people are, which I said that this is they set you up for digress. They drive these ideas of all this. If you just do this, and I did this and this, and they leave out. Actually, I'm hella lucky. Everybody else who did this failed. They just know, like the more you uncover, that's one of the things like the stuff I'm practicing for my personal growth. All those guys are considered like, don't even listen to them. Like, yeah, just don't even listen to them. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying they don't have some brilliant things to say. I'm saying if I'm trying to learn how to float in my pool, I probably shouldn't sit down with a person who drives big ships. It's not that stage yet. I'm not saying you can't get there. I'm not saying there won't become a time that you have to listen. But if you're in startup stage, you need to listen to people who maybe 5 to 10 steps, not people like 40, 50 steps in front of you. Because you won't even be able to translate it properly. Right. The experience is a translator. Your experience is a translator.
All right, second question, and this will be it, but it's a blend of two. Okay, so when building a system or building the systems, should we attempt to build the systems as we're building our business or before the doors open? And in order to build those systems, don't we actually have to be technicians, so to speak, because you guys I think Nana, you gave a great example of when you were learning. Perfect example. When the stuff went out, you was like, oh, I just did this. Why? Because 30 minutes ago, you was like, oh, I went to YouTube, I learned step by step. So you were taking technician-ish things to learn different things, so when something came up, whatever the system is. What I'm saying is, like, don't you kind of have to be a technician for a certain amount of time?
The difference is and he said it in the book, the difference is between is that you know that you have to go through those stages. Where if you don't know you have to, but where if you don't know, understand that you have to go through those stages, that you're not designed to. Too many people just stop at the manager technician, and keep looping back, okay. Right? Or they just crash and then they tell you these crazy stories if they've been victimized or whatever.
So how do you get out of that?
So
because I feel like that's where we said it. Fuck this book because it made me realize that I'm a fucking technician. But the problem is I love it and I don't want to love it, but I want to get out of
Okay,
it. So
Tone, let me jump in here.
yeah.
I've been waiting for this moment with you.
Why? We talked about
Because we've talked about this
Yeah,
in depth. This book is not written for you to see, oh shit, I'm a technician. Fuck, I should quit this game. No. We all have technicians in us. We all are mostly technician based on a lot of variables. It's not to say, I'm a technician, let's quit. It's to say, oh shit, here's my technician. Oh, and I have these other two. Some of them are dormant. Some of them are impotent. I just have to work on them a little bit and build them up so my ratio is different and better. Oh, if I'm 100% technician, it's 0-0. Let me start working on them other two if I want to stay in this game. Not, fuck, I'm going to go back to the corporate world and drag my head back down into the corporate offices and knock on the door with my fucking resume. No, it's saying, okay, cool, I got it. I've been fucking up, but I want this shit. So now, as a manager, what are the tools that I need to grow as a manager? What's the tools do I need to grow as an entrepreneur? Or what do I need to stop doing as a technician to allow my entrepreneurshipness to flourish through?
And he said in his book, and we just said in this last couple slides, evolving out of your personal comfort. It's your comfort, man. It ain't, like I said, it ain't gonna be, look, when you switch over and you turn those other two on and create more balance, the old technician gonna feel stupid to you. But the day you make it, it's like breaking up in that bad relationship that you got comfortable with. When you broke up, y'all was crying and like, girl, oh, we went through so much together, right? And then you leave, and what's that sister who dates the basketball player that was in Coming to America? What's the sister? Yeah, so then you start dating your Tiana Taylor, and all of a sudden, slowly but surely, you forget the school prom. Slowly but surely, you forget about being at the hot dog shop, and all you have is enough money for one hot dog, y'all Paul's cut it in half, hate it, right? It's like, at the end of the day, hey man, I was like, I gotta clean this over quick. You was at Casper's, right? And at the end of the day, all those stories get outdated because why? You got Tiana Taylor. And she performing, right? And you're like, And she's like, you wanna go back to hey, I heard your old girlfriend's playing softball. You want to go visit her? You're like, nah, I'm good. Let's go to this party. Why? Because you moved on. I'm saying this is what's going to happen. When you first leave that technician as being a technician and dominant, you will always have some technician in you. But when you move from being technician dominant, it's going to feel like you're breaking up with something that you built a relationship with. But then when the new relationship when you learn that new relationship, it's going to become like, why didn't I do this a long time ago?
Yeah, a lot of us have a codependence with our technician side, which means that if torn away from it, we'll feel like we're tearing away our identity. And we about to go to another slide that talks about it. So when shit pops off, we tend to go with what's natural to us. So if what's natural to you is fiddling, fixing shit, then regardless of what your company needs, you'll go back to fiddling and fixing shit.
Yeah. All right, Shelby, hit us with one.
All right, now. Keep in mind, I'm an artist, and I'm sensitive about my shit. That's what this stool feels like. Okay. So I'm coming from, I guess, maybe the corporate perspective, too, or just the overthinking perspective, because that is where I have lived, and I'm trying to move. But I've chosen an industry that I know nothing about to potentially start a business in, and I'm trying to figure out where is my technician in that space, because I don't know anything, so I can't get obsessed with the fiddling because I don't know anything. So is it gonna show up? What should I be looking for so I don't get blindsided?
Well, technician is a mindset more than it's what you do.
Okay.
So if you hey, I work hard at what I do, or I've been working hard in this company, or don't I deserve because I've been working, that's a technician mindset. Okay. So I don't think it's necessary. The thing is that you can become really good at something you don't really like. Okay. And after a while, you're like, well, I can do this for myself now, right? You still don't like it, but you're still a technician because it's a mindset of thinking that the work is more important than the actual system itself.
Okay. Thought it was quick. That was it.
Okay, cool. Look, we're gonna jump into ego because I don't want to be stuck. We're gonna come back to the next slide that Court had his. He had a bat like this about to knock it over the fence, and so we're gonna because I can still see it in his face. He's just like, "Let's go, baby." So I'm gonna scroll back down to the ego's the enemy. All right, let's get into this. I'm hyped up now. If I made you turn your sound down, well, goddamn it, turn it back up, because I'm about to turn up now. Woo! Anyway, so let me say this real quick. First of all, hold on, what's going on? Hold on.
Oh, shit.
Station identification. This is not fair that Danielle does this to her. She knows that I have attention disorder, whatever. Was it ADP or ADT? Or
ADD.
Oh, you don't see it?
Here come the real one.
Okay, well, that one. Oh! Okay, back to Hope. I'm sorry. I'm getting told by my team that I'm losing focus. But sometimes, you got to be able to expand your thoughts. Anyway, point is this. So, let me go to the next slide, because that's what I was. Aspiration doesn't equal. I know, it's just. Hey, Danielle's beautiful. I love Danielle because Danielle has comedy built in her designs. Like, she's an amazing, beautiful, brilliant designer. Mm-hmm. But she's funny as fuck, too. Don't get it twisted. She will hit you with jokes and you don't even know what's coming. Anyway, so let me go over this real quick. So y'all remember about 3 weeks ago, I said, with the Black Panthers, what the fuck is power to the people? Remember I shitted on power to the people? I shitted on power to the people. And some people got sensitive. Right? But the following week, I don't know if that same person or those same people paid attention to the hat I was wearing. I had a Black Panther hat on. I chose that hat. Matter of fact, I brought the hat black, brought the patch from Amazon, and had them sew it on the hat because I wanted to rock the Black Panthers logo. Now, it's easy to say, no, but I thought you said part of the people didn't mean shit. Yes, I did. But it's a little bit complex here. And the rule is aspirations, which are infinite, does not equal capabilities. We mix that up in our heads. Somebody says, I believe I'm going to do this, and our brain goes, oh, he's or she's capable of doing it. We read history, we look at life, we join groups, we follow leaders who scream aspiration, but we never question their capabilities. I love the Black Panthers for their aspirations. Loved it. I love their boldness. I love black folks standing up for what they believed in a time when a lot of people was too busy, ooh, don't you mess with white people. I love that. Didn't mean I saw any value in their strategy. I love Tupac. I thought he was a very entertaining young man. He inspired a lot. Was he capable of giving us that stuff? I think a lot of times in the black community, we get hijacked by aspirations, and I realize that aspirations and capabilities. And the why is this? Why? Why, man? Why won't you let the shit go? Why? Because when you didn't create these strategies you're about to use. You did not create the strategies you are about to use. But because your brain cannot separate aspirations from capabilities, a lot of times you will include aspirations as strategies. You won't sit down and go, wait a minute, but would that have worked? How is a 21-year-old go snatch power for somebody who just got to killing over 100 and some million people to obtain their power and built military resources, and you still haven't built, and your company runs on donations? And you gonna come for me? Let me help you out. That's like if a 12-year-old homeless kid decided he gonna come for me. Not, you don't have the position of power to do it for me. Or to make an 80-year-old homeless man say you're going to come for me. You don't have a chance. Why? You're not well positioned. Here's the thing, and if you acquired it, what are you going to do with it? That's why this picture, pay attention. When a dog chases a car, this is a famous business model. When a dog chases a car, if he catches it, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with it? If you get that power, what you going to do with it? That means when you think about business, this is another lesson. When you build a business plan, this is going to help you with short-term business planning. When you build a business plan, always be able to ask yourself a simple question: then what? We talk about all this stuff we want to do in society, all this stuff we want to do in business, and we never ask ourselves, so then when you get it, then what? If you achieve this, then what? If your child finishes school, then what? If you go to the gym and lose that weight, then what? If you find that person you've been trying to date, then what? We chase in a car and we don't know what to do. Our aspirations in our brain has become our capabilities. This is such a cold point, and it's so spoken all the time in our communities. That's why I threw up when the Black Panthers became the focus point again. I said, people, hold on, man. We're going to celebrate their rebellious side. I love that. That's me. I rock that. But that's all they had. They were kids. To take power, you got to understand power. And to understand power, you got to have a relationship with power. You got to do power. And taking donations ain't power. And power to the people, that means you don't understand power. People will not let everybody have power. That's just not how we work, especially in this country. And so, understanding the difference between aspirations and capabilities. So when somebody comes to you like somebody who can talk as beautiful as Umar Johnson, and they give you this, hey, we need to, and this is how we need to, and this is, that's aspirations. Doesn't mean he has the capabilities. That's why, in most presidents are not the doers. They're just a figurehead. But many of them take the aspirations of a president, but well, we here because, Libby Schaaf, dog. That's two different things. Speeches don't make it mean that you have the capability. Narratives don't mean you have the capability. You guys gonna go with this now? This is a cold part. This is one of the ones where it's a hidden flaw a hidden fallacy in our process of logic. But it's so popular in our black community, it's ridiculous. We love Malcolm X. You may love the way he spoke and all his aspirations. Was he capable of carrying it out? Sometimes the people who are capable of carrying it out, you don't even recognize. You're no different than a young dude right now who celebrates the hardcore thug, but will walk past the dude who's building a business every day. You're no different. You're doing the same thing. Because you're looking for the people who sold you beautiful aspirations, but you're not celebrating the people who actually produce something. And so you wonder why you're not producing, because you're taking all your cues of strategy and mental models from these people who are aspiration heavy and capability low. Last, when you think about your plans, social justice is full of chasing the dog chasing a car, and if he catches it, what the fuck are you gonna do with it? What does that mean? Hey, if the person uses if we decide to use proper pronouns tomorrow, does that fix anything? If white people decide tomorrow they're going, hey, we sorry, my bad, then what? Like that's a question you have to ask. When you get talking all this stuff we're talking, if you get this thing that's making you mad, ask yourself, then what? And if it means you're still broke as fuck with an empty B of A account, and you still can't take care of your basic responsibilities, you still a daddy skipping out on your child support, you still a mama who's distracted, you still will be depressed, you still suffering from your trauma, you still ignorant of how the things go, this is your release point, I'm telling you. Then what? Kind of deep, but I want to go there first. Warm this shit up. Let's get into this. Next slide. The worst enemy lives inside of you. That's the other reason I hate social justice. Your worst enemy is not outside of you, it's inside of you. Your ego. We're going to get into this ego thing. This ego thing is so motherfucking. And you think you know ego? If you haven't been through this is why, look, everybody who's been in this class, when we say we're about to read Ego's the Enemy, they all take a deep breath. Everybody takes a deep breath. Because what you thought was ego, you weren't even close to what is ego. We about to jump into some shit. The same energy that drives you makes us vulnerable to the dark side. Let me say this real quick. If you're driven, you are very vulnerable to the dark side. Yeah, you're very progressive, very driven, and you're very, very weak to the dark side. Sometimes you think because you're driven, you're safe. You know, I'm doing good. We're going to talk about good and bad at some point, but good and bad is a horrible distraction. But quite often, the reason a lot of us have ego is because we're overdriven. I know y'all like, ooh, overdriven. We have so this type of ego we're talking about is an unhealthy belief in our own importance. Arrogance and self-centered ambition. Let me say this again. The type of ego we're talking about is an unhealthy belief in our own importance. It is an arrogant, self-centered ambition. Y'all gonna realize, you might say, well, no, I don't have that. There's somebody, Kaj, you at the house going, oh, he ain't talking to me.
No.
Well, Dave Max, no, we talked. Dave Max said, the first time Dave Max with the man, Dave was like, man, Dave hated this book just as much as you hated the last book, right? But there's a lot of people at home right now that's spoken to us. He's saying this doesn't belong to you. This doesn't apply to you. Let's keep going.
It's you.
When the notion of ourself and the world grows so inflated that it begins to distort the reality that surrounds us, this is it. Let me say this again. When the notion of ourselves and the world grows so inflated that it begins to distort the reality that surrounds us. So, remember we talked about how you are your stories. Your ego can get so out of control that it starts to exaggerate the stories you have. It can exaggerate it so much that it disconnects you from reality. This goes back to the question Kaja asked. Your ego can get so big that when you self-evaluate yourself, you no longer can accurately see yourself. You can't see your customer. You can't see your lover. You can't see the market. You can't see nothing around you. Because that ambitious side of you, okay, so you're this very ambitious person. I want to do these things. But unconsciously, you're building exaggerated stories. I'm a boss. You took your aspirations and turned them into capabilities. So now you see the world through, I'm realist. This is what's happening. The reason I'm not successful is because, and your ego starts to, at that point, filter every word that comes out your mouth. But the problem is that maybe in the beginning you knew it was just a motivational. Maybe you knew you were just saving face. Maybe you knew you were just telling me because it was too painful to share the real truth at the time. After a while, your brain starts to believe it as facts. So go ahead.
Yeah, so tying into the overinflated value of self, right? Now we think we're so important. The world revolves and rotates around our ass, right? Pause. So as we move through the world, we're so easily offended by the smallest things, by the slightest things. Oh, that person didn't speak to me, or this thing happened, or I should be getting this, or the world needs to, because our overinflated sense of value and then our distorted sense of reality that surrounded us, we see the world through a lens that's so skewed. Going back to the humility piece, that's so opposite of that. And if we're trying to move, we can't see with that lens. We can't see truth, or we can't see reality with that kind of lens. We take a deep breath and we say, well, what's the reality of it? Then your ego doesn't want to allow this piece, this part of you, to get clarity, because now the truth and the real low self-value and low self-esteem will start rearing up.
Now watch this one. Next slide. It says self-confidence becomes arrogance. Assertiveness becomes obstinacy. And self-assurance becomes reckless abandon. Meaning that these simple, innocent emotions you have So remember, when you're inspired, I'm trying to develop self-confidence, Nana, right? I'm just trying to build self-confidence. I don't have anything right now. I'm suffering from imposter syndrome. Trying to build self-confidence. But you keep talking long enough and it becomes arrogance. Nana, you know what? I'm just trying to be assertive. I'm trying to speak up for what I want to do. And it becomes obstinacy. Again, that word, me and my tongue, my heavy tongue. I can't speak Spanish because I can't.
Obstinacy.
Obstinacy, you're right. And then you go to, no, I want to feel self-assured. And it becomes reckless abandon. Meaning that remember, this is all inspired from you wanting to be greater. And these things turn, because once again, you were using this to motivate yourself. And in the beginning, it was just an innocent motivation. But as you take hits and blows and losses, and your fear kicks in, and as you hear superficial praise, social media, superficial praise, all this stuff starts to become solidified. And this is where distortion of reality starts to happen. So you could be reading all these books we're reading, but we all could be looking at you every day going, it look like you ain't never read a book in your life. Because your ego has literally taken away your ability to self-examine and self-align with all this new material you're learning in this class. And you're going to learn in this class. All this stuff you're reading in this one book, the E-Myth, can literally, matter of fact, I'll tell you what you're doing at home right now if you're dealing with your ego. But that's not, I mean, that's cool, but that's not really for me. But what about, that's what your ego's doing right now. See, your ego is designed to keep you from feeling that pain of not being good enough, being rejected, not being valuable, not being the elite, not being number one, not being at the top of your game, not delivering on what you promised to the world. That's what your ego is doing. And so your ego is literally having a separate conversation that is altering. So you imagine like there's a virus in your beliefs that's corrupting your beliefs every day, and one day you go back to your beliefs and it's something totally different. Let's keep going. In this way, ego is the enemy of what you want and of what you have, of mastering a craft, of real creative insight, of working well with others, of building loyalty and support, of longevity, of repeating and retaining your success. It repulses advantages and opportunities in a magnet for enemies and error. So let's go over this slow because this is so fucking powerful. To rush to this is almost a crime. I need y'all to hang with me for a second. It says, in this way, the ego is the enemy of what you want and what you want to have. So mind you, what you want, not what I want for you, not what society wants for you, not what schools told you should have, not what your parents want, but your ego is the enemy from what you want. Let's go into what it is. For mastering your craft. I can't tell you, I'm sure we have some artists in here. How many people think they cold-blooded? They'll grab a microphone, grab a camera, grab a paintbrush, and as soon as they open their mouth or they start acting or they start shooting a camera or start painting, the person who's a master artist go, what the fuck am I watching? And that person, when they suck, they will have a greater attitude than the master in the room. That shit was hot, right? That shit was hot, right? That shit was tight. And everybody's like, oh, damn. And you see so much emotion, and you can tell if you tell a person no, it's going to be an argument. You think, are you worth that emotional cost? Nah. Yeah, it was tight, bro. That shit was tight. And then later on, 5 years from now, man, folks be hating on me. That's the reason I ain't been put on. Your craft.
Yo, let me jump in here. It's like when you at the studio with a beat maker and he play the beat for you and he bobbing his head like it's the shit, trying to sell it to you, and you're like, no, player, that's not it. It's not it. But you don't want to say that. You just go, play the next one. Play the next one. But that goes back to the other slides up above when it talked about the technician mind, manager and entrepreneurship mind. That's your ego too. It's saying, shit, I'm not good at these things. Let's hurry up and go back to do what we're good at. So you staying in that space so much that you're not learning anything over there because you can't master entrepreneurship because your ego is not letting you, because it doesn't want to feel low self-value or low self-esteem or vulnerability, so it just keeps doing what it's good at.
Real creative insight. This is so cold. So insights is when you observe people behavior and you gain understanding of why people do what they do. when you have an ego, do you realize it stops you from having healthy judgment? I remember about 3 or 4, maybe 5 years ago, me and Shakira used to sit around. Man, what's wrong with Court? You know, Court gonna wear that beanie cap. He need to think about himself. That was our ego. We had an ego problem in that space. Here's the funny part. We would probably wear the same cap within a month and not even see the connection. Meaning that you talk about people and you don't realize you do the same goddamn thing because your ego has distorted you so much when you can't even see how you showing up to the point that half the people you're talking about are already reflections of you anyway. You talking about all your best friends and realize all your best friends are really you. Your ego will have you distorted on judging people around you and will give you the sense that it's like, I'm the only good one in this room. I'm the only smart one in this room. I'm the most talented in this room. Everybody else got flaws. So guess what you don't work on? Your flaws. And when it comes time to serve other customers as far as provide a service and products, you know what's good for them. You don't realize that you have to engage the process of discovering what that person wants. You will say, you know what, I know what Court wants. Yeah, Court wants a basketball. Go get him a basketball, make sure it has Court Smith on it. And when you get there, you realize, oh, you already have a whole bunch of those? That's ego.
Yeah, here's another famous one. Hey, I went to this class. I watched this class at Hope about ego as an enemy, and I read this book, and I thought it'd be perfect for you. If you that person that you listen in the game to give it to somebody else, that's your ego.
Yeah. Stop trying to fix people. Brothers, I'm going to slide this one in there. Stop trying to get that woman who you're going to fix her up. That's your ego. Who in the fuck are you? Who in the fuck are you going to go in that woman's life and tell her, this is what you need to be doing because I see what's good for you? You egotistical fuck. That used to be my old version of me. That's why I can speak so honest about that. Next one. Working well with others. Egotistical people are the worst. Okay, let me explain something to you real quick. When you talk about somebody with an ego, with an ego problem, when you talk to them about anything, they comparing it to themselves. You can make a comment, like I can make a comment about something, and you'd be like, well, I don't do that. Did I say you don't do that or did do that? What's wrong with you? Right? It's a constant comparison space. Because at the end of the day, or you ask them how they doing, you're like, hey man, how you doing? I'd be like, oh man, I had a great day. I went whitewater rafting. Yeah, I went whitewater rafting. And as a matter of fact, it's up there. Let me tell you what me and my wife did. Can you give me room to be in a space with you? Can you just sit with it? Ego shapes the conversation so bad. Or if somebody gives you, if feedback is off the table. Like literally you chop off so many heads that even if you don't have to chop my head off, I saw you chop off Tone's head. So you know what I'm going to do? I pass. So you wonder, and then you wonder why don't nobody come over and help me out with my business? It's that visible, invisible ego.
Shit, or I wonder why there ain't nobody around me. Everybody cool with me, but nobody fucks with me. Why
Loyalty
is
and
that?
support.
Why is that? And your brain will be like, well, I'm hella raw, I'm hella dope, I'm hella fly, I'm successful, I got this, I got that. You know, look, if you pull down that veil real quick of your ego, you realize, well, ain't nobody fucking with you.
It's you. Okay, men and women, if you've been single for a lot of time or you've just been in these one and done relationships, and they constantly leaving and it seems like you just can't keep people around you and all these men suck out here and what's wrong with black women, what's wrong with black men, it's your ego.
It's your ego.
If I ever hear you generalize, you want some ego shit. Because the common denominator of all your bad problems is you. It's you. That new person is only just new for a little while. So the only thing new about them is that new space you share when you don't know each other. Once you get past that, you're going to come back to the table. And the isolation that's going to be created, you don't have. If you have a problem with employees, it's you. You have a problem with friends, it's probably you.
It's you.
I remember one of my partners would talk about his ex-girlfriend. He's like, yeah, man, she did whoop, whoop, whoop. I said, partner, pimp, we don't do this. I'm a dude. I want to hear this conversation. So what do you mean? I'm ask you a simple question. Why the fuck did you choose her? Always stay focused on what you did wrong. I don't want to hear about her. Because you're going to skew her story anyway. So at this point, I want to listen to a make-believe version of her. I don't know who the hell she really is. I won't know her until I know her. But your skew story is going to make her seem like she's a devil from hell. But with the person I am talking to right in front of me, if you spend all your time talking about what she did wrong, guess who you ain't never worked on? Yourself. And why don't you do that? Ego.
This one gonna hurt. Forgiveness. If you can't forgive nobody, you holding grudges to the world, it's your ego. It's your ego. You got a big bag of transgressions that everybody had on you that you ain't letting go. Then that's your ego. But in that bag, it's hurting you though.
Remember, it's about exaggerating your self-importance. You think you so damn important. Like this whole social justice, people think they so motherfucking important. He didn't call me the right pronoun. You better bring that ego the fuck down and sit down and go, what is this service this person, like if this person is being in front of you being an asshole, being sexist, racist, homophobic, all right, it's gotta be what it gotta be. He didn't use the right pronoun. And that's what you're gonna cut that person off for? That's what you're gonna come off and, well, I am not this. I tell you what, I don't give a fuck about who you are. And this is where the fuck your feelings come in. Because your ego is now trying to intrude on my comfort zone. Fuck your emotions. Meaning that you are exaggerating your importance and you're using your emotions and then you tell that powerful narrative. I'm not going to let you talk to me like this because when I was 12, this guy walked up to me and it was the most traumatic time. And somebody next to me like, oh my God, Nana, how could you do that? And you guys just attack me with your little narrative, fucked up ass emotional feelings over this unnecessary, over important person who's not that fucking important to me. That's the reality. I got about 150 people in my life that are hella important. And of those 150, I probably only fuck with, half the time, I only fuck with 10 of them because I don't got that much time. So with that being said, you come around, you 4,500 or 4,572 and say, Nana, what do you think about me? And I'd be like, I don't know what the fuck to tell you. And you take it personal, that's you. Ain't got nothing to do with me. Stop thinking that you that damn important. I got to sit down and be like, oh, you know, you was on my heart last night and I was in the bed and I told my wife, leave me alone. And I was like, oh, what would Michael do in this situation? So I'm glad you're here. I can share this with you. No! Dude, fuck your life. I'm not thinking about you like that. And you should move through this world realizing that if people don't have a reason to think about you, then they're not. And it's not bad. It's just that people got their own shit. You just too fucking self-important. Next one. Longevity. This is going to be a hard one to digest. Your ego causes a chain reaction of things that happen in your life that causes you to die early. We're going to get into that. Are repeating and retaining your success. Meaning, I got a partner right now who's an ex-NBA player. I'm not going to say his name because he's very famous. And we love him a lot in the Bay Area. And he had a lot of success. And he can't find success to save his motherfucking name. Because he thinks because he achieved success, he thinks he now has the authority to tell you what is the right thing to do moving forward. His ideas is as bad as they can get. I promise you, if Mr. Rogers came back and decided to run a company, he would smoke this person. But yet, this person, ego, got them thinking that they are the next Steve Jobs. They are so convinced. And they spend more money on dumbass ideas. So he's achieved success. But he can't repeat success. And that's why a lot of these books, real quick, that's why a lot of these books you listen to are egotistical fucks writing books about success. And if you look at these individuals, they will sit up here and tell you about all these amazing things. The question you need to ask yourself, can they repeat it? If you can't repeat it, Motherfucker, stop trying to make luck sound sexy like you was 007 running through all these lucky opportunities that you knew what to do when, motherfucker, you was lucky as they came.
Yeah, a lot of times with that ego, we think, I'm going to put out a product and I'm going to bless the world with it. And I'm going to put it out there and everyone's going to come running to me. And I'm just going to sit here and let the world come and pay me for this, for blessing them. And we subconsciously do that for years. And then 10 years go by and we've used that same model. Now here's the thing. If we happened, it's even worse for somebody. I think that model is a little bit salvageable because you can game them up. You can give them game on how and why and what and the what's. But if a person happens to have a blip of success, say at the beginning, it's going to be a hard conversation to try to convince that person that they can't do this shit again. Because well, I did it like this one time. I had boom, I hit it, and I sold and this and
They
that.
took pictures of me and everything.
And I was balling. I had it. So I'm still the same me, so I could just do it again. That person might be fucked if they don't swap their ego out.
Next, it says, it repulses advantages and opportunities. It's a magnet for enemies and errors. Enemies and errors. Oh, I can't wait till we get into the enemies and errors.
Enemies. and
Like, you don't realize, when we say the type of experience you have on this earth is up to you, you're going to see how much the enemy is driving this conversation. And it comes from an innocent space of aspirations. Innocent. It's innocent. And it's not a negative thing, because it's a good thing to have aspirations, right? It's good that you should want to grow, want to be greater, want to be stronger. You just don't realize it can get away from you. And if you pay attention to the black community in Oakland, I don't know about Chicago. Well, yeah, I do a little bit. I don't know about LA. Not enough. I don't know about down south. There you go. For sure. I don't know nothing about down south. But I know about when you hang out in these Oakland, Chi-Town, LA, even a little bit of New York, we had this thing amongst us because we were suffering from poverty, where we will praise a title before we even achieve the goal. And so we culturally push us towards being egotistical. The praises you get, you can, let's say a goal you have is 1 to 100. You can do 0.05 in front of your people and you get praised like you had 10. If you get to 1, you at 50. And if you get to 5, you're 100% that person. The problem is you will stop at 5, not realize you got 95 more to go. Because our culture alone, it literally pours into it like you've never seen. Y'all seen that Facebook shit? Tell somebody right now, I challenge you, go home tonight, make up a fake ass title, find a dope ass picture, try to get a cool looking flyer and say, I'm doing this now. Watch somebody, I always knew you was gonna blow up town. Blow up? You mean blow up the flyer or blow up? What the fuck you talking about? Y'all seen this shit. Little young girl takes a picture from a photographer, which we know, you know how it works when they're young. And I knew my cousin was gonna be a model. Look how tight she is. Y'all know I ain't bullshitting, right? This is disease that's also gonna distort reality, that's gonna stop us from actually being the driver of our own lives. Let's get a couple more before. We're going to go a little bit longer because we had a station identification. We had a ghost in the system, you understand me? A ghost in the system. Next one. We think something else is to blame for our problems. Most often other people. Black people. Hold on a second. Maybe, hold on. Maybe I should have brought this in Chinese because this is going to be hard on some people. So now y'all see where I'm going with the social justice all this time?
Yo, remember I told you guys last week, the girl, when I was trying to give sales a game, she said, hey, stop. I'm a woman. You keep saying you guys. And I was like, what the fuck is about to go on? So as we got deeper in the conversation, it was her turn to have the talk and have the floor to talk about something. And she said, well, you know, right now I'm having a little tough time. Me and my significant other just split up. He tells me that I always think I'm right and I never think I'm wrong. And I'm like, I could have told your ass that with the first statement that you made. And so she starts going into her personal life problems, and it was all ego. It was all ego. And I was like, well, that's the fuck you get. You know what I mean? Like, next person.
Hey, she came for the wrong person that day.
I love, like, this. And if this is a muscle, honestly, let's keep it 100 with ourselves. This is a muscle, if not practice. We all can do this shit tonight, tomorrow, the next day, right now. It's easy if you don't practice the muscle enough to not get into this mentality. Oh, it was not my fault. It was. Remember we talked, take responsibility for everything that happens to you as an entrepreneur. That's working on this muscle to reduce that ego. What could I have done? And even if it boils down to, well, fuck, I chose her. I had a part to play in this shit, and I picked her.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's a very few cases it might not be your fault, but it doesn't matter. What could you have done different? Right? It's like the whole social justice is like somebody is supposed to help you. They should have. Why don't they? They should. That's the whole tone of the whole everything you see, right? Like, why haven't we created our own police system? Take responsibility for that. Why would we prioritize that? Why were we telling our kids to be firemen as opposed to, hey, let's build our own police system. Let's build systems for ourselves. Why are we telling our kids to go to college as opposed to, let's create institutions to provide jobs for our youth so our youth can have a different morality? Instead of us telling our kids to work on our rap, why don't we tell our kids, yo, we got to become Sony and Capitol and take this shit so we can control the outcome of the impact of this music? With no apologies accepted, and who gives a fuck about these big boys? If they're going to bring heat, because the bigger they are, the harder they fall. I mean, that the bigger a company is, the more flaws and weaknesses they have. And because we're young and small, we're more agile. So we have a better chance of taking them down than another big company. Let's make a move. But instead, you know what we did? We didn't do that. And it's okay. I'm not mad. It's not bad. This ain't a good bad. This ain't a grade. Don't come to me like, no, I should got a B. Shut the fuck up. I don't know what you're talking about. What I'm suggesting to you is this. When you take responsibility, you start seeing solutions. This again. When you take responsibility, you start seeing solutions. Mm-hmm. When you don't take responsibility, you are literally hiding the solutions from yourself because you get this emotional ego that gets so strong you can't see solutions. But you're so busy about fault and good and bad and A's and B's and F's and D's. And I'm like, yo, no, accept that shit, pause. Accept that shit. Once you accept it, once you take responsibility, you will reveal the solution. I mean, next one, this shit crazy. Okay, anyway. We are, as a poetic Lucretius put it a few thousand years ago, the proverbial sick man ignorance of the cause of his malady. Yeah. Especially for successful people who can't see what ego prevents them from doing because all they can see is what they've already done. So, just going back, a lot of times when you're successful, you're so basking on what you've done, you can't measure what you need to do. You're literally stuck in your past. You're not moving into your potential future. Remember I said the future is the unknown. You won't move into the unknown. It's almost like this is a recipe for a technician in an adolescent stage. That's why I say this is an ego. Adolescent stage is being a technician, if you're mainly technician, you're really egotistical. And so you're so basking on, man, I've done this, I achieved that. And I say, well, what's your new strategy? Well, we're going to do it this way. And I'll be like, I think we should examine that differently. Look, who's been successful in this industry? I've been doing this for 20 years. How are you gonna tell me what to do? You just gonna come in here yesterday? I've been doing this for 20 years. I know what I'm doing. I got the most experience, maturity. That's just your ego talking at this point. Shut the fuck up and work on strategy. If it's a bad suggestion, then dive into it and say it's a bad suggestion. If you don't have time to it, come back to it. But don't just say because I've done this. That's like if you went to Too Short. If you was a new rapper, you like Too Short. I think you should think about this doing this different. But you don't tell me you ain't got no Allens. I've been around since 1985. What the fuck you gonna say to me? That's why you'll fall, because your ego. I'm not saying I made Too Short. Please don't say Too Short. Donna said you was tripping your ego. Why are you tripping still? Have E40 give them a call because of shit going wrong. That's not what the fuck. I don't know them like that. What I'm suggesting to you is that I've seen success kill itself off because of his previous wins. And they discount every advice that's coming to them because as far as they're concerned, they're a winner. That's such an easy space to be into, especially if you haven't learned to develop ego exercises to condition and soften your ego. Ego undermines the process. Remember, y'all, we talked about process? This is a simple ass one. Ego undermines the process, the practice, the journey. Now, in business, let me refresh your memory. I told you guys earlier this year, when the class was public, that the most important part of business is you have to love the process because the outcome is not promised to you. And if you really want to grow and become greater, you have to really focus in on the practice. I also told you, shortly after, when the class was paid for, you have to move to a stage of focus practice, right? You're measuring your practice, right? You also have to be aware of your biases around your practices because your biases, your mental blind spots, they can distort it. But you know what compromises all that? A huge ego. If an egotistical person is practicing, they don't practice the same. When an egotistical person is on the process, it ain't the same process. They are literally moving the markers and the needles and the measurements to meet their needs. When you're egotistical, you also will distort. Okay, let's say your job is to shoot 20 free throws. Let's say you're on your 50th shot. Your ego will tell you, oh, no, you already hit 5. That's good. Why? Because your ego will tell you that you're good no matter what you do. The ego is so self-amplified, it is insane. And it's almost like a subconscious conversation going on at all times. When people try to give you feedback, you can't take it. When you're in the process and you're trying to grow, you can't measure yourself because as far as you're concerned, I'm moving. I'm doing better than them. You're not ready to take that deep dive and look at yourself.
Yo, how checkable are you? And I think the dope part about that question is no matter where you are at your game, no matter where you are, if you're at the top of your game right now and you're getting all the praises and accolades, is there somebody, some group, some people that you can go to and your shoulders is relaxed and you checkable? You malleable. And none of the shit you've accomplished matters. Because we're not looking at that. We're looking at this. We're looking at your processes to see where you're steering, what direction you're going in, and you are checkable. If you got to a stage in your business that you ain't checkable, can't nobody check you, can't nobody open you up and say, bro, this ain't gonna work, or sis, something wrong, and you ain't tight, you don't get tight, then that you gotta ask your question, where's your ego at in that space? And you know, if you can observe yourself in those moments, that's how you know. That's where you know where your ego is. Hey, look, let me. Can I give you some advice? X, Y, Z. And if you respond like that, well, I'm the best one in the Bay, or I'm working hella hard. All ego. All ego.
This is the last slide for the night. I think this would be a great last slide. It says, the pioneering Echo Harold Green compared egotism to alcoholism. The egotist does not stumble about knocking things off his desk. He does not stammer or drool. No, instead, he becomes more and more arrogant, and some people, not knowing what is underneath such an attitude, mistake his arrogance for a sense of power and self-confidence. You could say they start to mistake that about themselves too, not realizing that the disease they contracted or that they're killing themselves with it. So let me give you a real life example of how this works, because this is one that is crazy to me. You see this, like the most popular people in communities, the guy who walks in and everybody kind of like, yo, this person's powerful, or this person has that swag to them. This person shows confidence. Person's self-assured, know where they're going. They can walk into the room and everybody goes, shh, be quiet, they're in the room. They're assertive, they drive their point, they beat the weakest point up in the room. They're usually the most damaged people in the room. Yet they're the most loved people in the room, most celebrated person in the room. A lot of social justice people who articulate ideas so strong. This is what the world should do. Yeah, the world? Huh? Really? This is what black people need. Really? That's what black people need, huh? And as a CEO of this company, I'm here to meet with you guys, explain some things that you need to understand. I promise you, this is such a disease. Because usually the most popular people from school all the way up to our adulthood suffer from this. And the people who praise them suffer from it, and that's why they praise them, because they want it for themselves. So it's a cold-blooded cycle. So the same person, you'd be like, yo, you're so assertive and strong, and you're such a powerful leader, and I want my kids to be like you, is because the ego is praising another ego when they can't see it. Neither party can see it. They literally are becoming addicted to this thing. And after a while, they start to wear suits like it. They start walking around talking like it. They start they dating like it. They move like it. They go out and buy them a car so they look like it. And you don't realize, and all the people who praise you, if you're a man, all the women who date you, if you're a woman, all the guys who admire you. Sometimes you're like, all these men, I'm too strong for these men. I'm just a little bit too strong for them. No. I'm just I got this down here. They just not ready for my kind of personality. They're just not strong enough. These men just not strong enough. I promise you. And all your girlfriends be like, yeah, girl, because you're a powerful ass woman. You're doing some amazing things. It's ego growing the ego inside of you. I don't think y'all understand how this is so goddamn cold that when a person's an alcoholic, they don't know they're alcoholic. This example is so cold because you're suffering from egotism and you don't even know it because the people around you have egos. Theirs is just subdued because they haven't got a chance to shine strong enough yet. But as soon as they get that opportunity, and matter of fact, this is how cold ego is. All your friends who are pumping you up are really suffering from envy. They really want to be you. And when you fall, I promise you, they're going to unconsciously celebrate it because now they can be the number one ego person. And this is a virus. You might say, well, Nana, what's wrong with that, player? I kind of like being high. I like being drunk on my ego a little bit because that works cool if you ain't doing nothing. If you just going to the club every week and you're getting that chicks, that might be your greatest tool, right? Because there's a time and place for everything. If you're at the club, you single, you're 21, hey, maybe you need to turn it up. But when you decide you want to build something, you will be a false captain.
Mm-hmm. Real quick, I think about 3 athletes: Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant. In our minds, some of those seem very confident, sometimes overconfident, arrogant at times. However, you look at their actions. You look at Tiger Woods' actions when he was at the top of his game. He changed his swing because he knew at the top of his game, something inside him allowed him to break through his ego so he could start over and change his swing from scratch so he can go to the next level. It takes a humble person to do that. You look at Michael Jordan when he was ascending and he wasn't getting calls He wasn't getting called for those fouls because he wasn't the Michael Jordan that he came to be yet. So guess what he did that summer? He put on hella pounds so that he just wouldn't feel it as much and he could still finish to the basket. That takes humility. Because instead of crying to the referee, they fouled me. This not the 90s basketball. Fuck that shit.
LeBron.
See LeBron, how every year LeBron gets more cryy? That's ego. But you look at somebody like Jordan or LeBron or even Steph Curry as a youngster, who the humblest superstar you ever want to meet is because he's constantly, he has that chip on his shoulder from never being picked and being last and all those things, and he carries that with him to keep his ego down, so he's always progressing.
It's like let me close this out. You guys ever seen a skinny dude get buff? And the most irritating person you ever met in your life? Because they finally gained a stage for their ego, right? They wanted to be that person, they just didn't have the accolades. But the problem wasn't the muscles, that was a person that was always inside of them. That's like when a person gets money and they go crazy, that's who's inside of them. They just didn't have the stage for it. And so what I'm trying to explain to you, like, this ego thing is, some of you guys might think, oh, no, I don't have an ego because I'm not rah, 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 because you just don't have your stage yet. Sometimes ego is the most humblest person in the room. The most kindest. You know how many people who've come to our class when we had people coming in before COVID? And they were sweet, and they were nice, and they were kind, and their egos were humongous. Humongous. They would come with love, hugs, gifts, prizes, and praise. And behind that was this crazy ass. Matter of fact, this person, you would leave them with your child, let them babysit your child. And yet their ego was like, ah! They just didn't have the stage. If they gain power, they may turn into Donald Trump overnight. I'm not exaggerating this point. Like Donald Trump had less power, you might even love him. You might, I like that dude.
Love him.
They did. They
People
loved him.
fucked with him.
He was loved by hella people. Yep. It's when that ego gets a bigger stage, you see parts of the ego that's almost like, whoa. So imagine building a business when you're dealing with lies and you're building remember you're playing the most important game in this world. That's the hell of a stage. That stage lets that ego come out. And before, you know what? You destroy your companies. You destroy your systems. You destroy your business. With that being said, we went extra 8-10 minutes over. That figured the time. We're going to pause here. We got a lot more slides. We're taking 2 weeks off. Next week, there's no class. You have a couple questions? Okay, come on. I let a couple questions right real quick. We got 2 weeks off. I'm going to make this announcement. When the questions are over, I'm going to just get up and just walk away from my table. I don't even say bye. So don't get sensitive because you're too damn important. Third thing is that in this 2 weeks off, we're going to continue to read Eagle's the Enemy, and we're going to continue with the E-Myth. I'm probably going to release a couple of podcasts because that's 2 weeks. Tone, are you guys still doing? So Tone and Charlize are doing. We're going to do a permanent thing called Peers Talking to Peers, very similar to the meet and greet, but it's going to be more structured for a couple of things. One, so you can have a place where you feel safe to have conversations. Sometimes when you ask a question online, you're scared that we're going to measure your we're going to do intelligence comparison. We don't do intelligence comparison. We love everybody's here. We're only doing this because we love you. Like, honestly, I love my culture. Yeah, that's the only reason I'm here. If it wasn't for love, this is not lucrative enough. This doesn't even make sense for me. But I love my culture. I love my people. And my heart cries every day. I realize how much we don't know and what we don't see. And we're here to give this and provide as much as we can. And what the greatest gift you can ever give us is your growth. So with that being said, next week we're going to give you guys a couple of podcasts to fill in some of that space. Tone, Vic, and Charlize are going to be here, and they're going to have a session where you can start getting used to being vulnerable around your peers. You guys can have some real conversations about things that happened last month, things that you experienced from class, things you experienced in your business. Also, we're going to try in the future start to introduce some exercises. I'm not sure they're ready to do this first class, but we have an announcement coming out. And you should be looking for the announcement, but it's going to be a Zoom meeting, not this Friday, but next Friday, at April 2nd. At what time?
We don't know yet. It's probably the same time as
Right, it's probably the same time as last time, April 2nd, and it's for peers talking to peers, having real conversations, and whatever they can answer. Also, me and Court won't be online. We want you to speak freely as possible. When they bring information for us to kind of process, they will filter it so we can focus on how to improve. We don't ever sit around and blame you for being a flawed student. We think about how can we improve the class so we can show up for you. So I want you guys to feel comfortable because we need to see who you are so we can help you get to where you want to go. All right? So with that being said, Shabisha going to ask some questions because on that last question, watch me and Corey is going to get up and walk away, and then Marquis going to just know he hit the mute button, and then you all just going to hear some cool, little soulful, cool black music. Let's go for it.
This one is from Kaja.
Kaja, you back? She don't even take a nap. Kaja's like this. What you doing? What's up? We gonna talk about. She probably doing push-ups while you talk. Listen to this podcast.
So there was a podcast maybe like 2 weeks ago,
Dope.
and it was talking about the premise was like pushing to some end goal when there's a good enough stopping point. You guys remember that? I'll keep going. And so her question was, so is being satisfied with your goal versus pushing toward a previously established threshold considered moving the needle to good enough to spare your ego?
Sometimes, so good enough sometimes is also a safe way out, right? If you don't push past your discomfort, then you never have to realize if you're good enough or not. Because that's how you measure good enough, even though it has nothing to do with you being good enough. Also, you have to ask yourself, if you stay where you are, then what? Then what? And if you're totally comfortable with that story, and I mean honestly comfortable with that story, that's okay. This class is for everybody who wants to take it, and I think Kaja thinking is actually the perfect kind of thing I like in this class, which is she's processing ideas and she's looking at it from different angles, some angles I don't even see, and I love the way she processes thoughts. So this class is perfect for her. But her end goal is really not necessarily what we're suggesting, what we're driving towards. There is agenda, there is context. And the context is that we're trying to move towards folks who said, hey, I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to run a business. And then we want to give you clarity on, hey, here's the booby traps, and this is what this really means. However, let's say you're in this position where you're like, hey, I'm really, really good, but I want to play a role of pushing the next man above you. That's actually very admirable, right? But be careful with the phrase good enough. Because good enough quite often is a comfort zone. And remember, comfort zone, here's the thing with comfort zones. They sound so innocent when you say them. Like, just be good enough. It sounds like I'm telling you, just go home and rest. But often it comes with a lot of long-term depression. And that's the part we don't talk about, right? It's like the opposite of pain is comfort. So sitting on your couch being comfortable is great. The opposite of pleasure is comfort, right? So sitting on your couch may feel great, but long-term is tormenting you. It's destroying you as a human being, because as a human being, you do have basic needs, right? So I'm not taking that away, but sometimes you've built a world that's rich enough in what you're doing that is satisfying, and that is perfectly okay. We're not saying it's this or that. We're saying if you want to build, let's say Kaja says, okay, my career life, I don't want to touch it. It's good. But later on, she decides, hey, I don't like what's happening in this community. I want to work on something. All these principles come back to the table. These are building principles, right? Let's say she's at a church, and she's like, yo, they asked me to be the minister of the church now, and I'm going to run this church. All those principles are back on the table again, right? So that's what I'm trying to highlight. Yes, we use the word business because this is an entrepreneur course, but it's also a leadership course. These principles are absolutely have a crossover space.
That was it. That's the last one.